অ্যাক্টিডেট মেডিয়েটার বৃন্দ, যদিও বিমসের নিয়ম হচ্ছে টাইম সব কিছু শুরু করার, আমাদের একজন গেস্ট, আমাদের সুপ্রিম কোর্ট বার অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের প্রেসিডেন্ট মিস্টার মমতাজউদ্দিন ফকির, উনি আসতে লেট করছেন, এই জন্য অপেক্ষা করছিলাম। আজকের অনুষ্ঠানের সম্মানিত প্রধান অতিথি তার অনুমতিক্রমে মূলত আমরা শুরু করছি। প্রথমেই আমাদের মাঝে যারা উপস্থিত রয়েছেন, আমাদের আজকে অনুষ্ঠানের প্রধান অতিথি মাননীয় বিচারপতি আহমদ সোহেল মহোদয়। আপনারা জানেন উনি মেডিয়েশনের উপর গোল্ড মেডেল পেয়েছেন এবং জাজ হাইকোর্ট ডিভিশন সুপ্রিম কোর্ট অফ বাংলাদেশ। আমাদের মাঝে যারা উপস্থিত রয়েছেন সম্মানিত সভাপতি সুপ্রিম কোর্ট বার অ্যাসোসিয়েশন নেপাল মিস্টার হরিশঙ্কর নিউতলা, এবং প্রিজাইড যিনি করছেন আমাদের বিমস ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কোঅর্ডিনেটর মিস্টার বিজয় স্যার, বিজয় বিশেষজ্ঞ ভারতীয়। আর মূল ট্রেনার হিসেবে যিনি থাকছেন, আপনারা ইতিপূর্বে তাকে দেখেছেন, উনি ডক্টর অপূর্ব প্যাটেল, উনি অ্যাসোসিয়েট প্রফেসর গুজরাট ন্যাশনাল ল ইউনিভার্সিটি এবং বিমসের ট্রেনার। এবং কিছুক্ষণ পরেই আমাদের সঙ্গে যোগ দেবেন আমাদের সুপ্রিম কোর্ট বার অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের সম্মানিত সভাপতি মিস্টার মমতাজউদ্দিন ফকির। আপনাদের সবাইকে প্রথমে শুভেচ্ছা জানিয়ে আজকের বিষয়ের উপর আমি আলাপ করতে চাই। ইতিমধ্যে আমরা 40 ঘন্টা যে ট্রেনিং নিয়েছি, এটা 18th অর্থাৎ 18তম আপনারা অ্যাক্রিডিটেড মেডিয়েটর হয়েছেন ফ্রম বাংলাদেশ। আমি শুরু করতে চাই ঠিক এইভাবেই। শুভ সকাল। আজকে বিমস আয়োজিত ট্রেনিং কোর্সের প্রধান অতিথি আন্তর্জাতিক স্বর্ণপদক প্রাপ্ত মেডিয়েটর মাননীয় বিচারপতি আহমদ সোহেল, হাইকোর্ট বিভাগ বাংলাদেশ সুপ্রিম কোর্ট, সম্মানিত বিশেষ অতিথিবৃন্দ সর্বজনাব মিস্টার হরিশঙ্কর নিউতলা, সিনিয়র অ্যাডভোকেট প্রেসিডেন্ট সুপ্রিম কোর্ট বার অ্যাসোসিয়েশন অফ নেপাল, এবং মিস্টার এমডি মমতাজউদ্দিন ফকির, উনি কিছুক্ষণের মধ্যেই অনুষ্ঠানে আসবেন, সিনিয়র অ্যাডভোকেট প্রেসিডেন্ট সুপ্রিম কোর্ট বার অ্যাসোসিয়েশন অফ বাংলাদেশ। উদ্বোধনী অনুষ্ঠানের সম্মানিত সভাপতি মিস্টার বিজয় ভি ভারতীয়, ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কোঅর্ডিনেটর অফ বিমস, এবং দুদিনব্যাপী অনুষ্ঠিতব্য প্রিয় কোর্স ডাইরেক্টর ডক্টর অপূর্বা প্যাটেল, অ্যাক্রিডিটেড মেডিয়েটর, অ্যাসোসিয়েট প্রফেসর গুজরাট ন্যাশনাল ল ইউনিভার্সিটি এবং ট্রেনার অফ বিমস, উপস্থিত অংশগ্রহণকারী বিজ্ঞ অ্যাক্রিডিটেড মেডিয়েটর বন্ধুগণ, আপনাদের সবাইকে স্বাগত ও অভিনন্দন। আমরা সবাই অবগত আছি জাতির জনক বঙ্গবন্ধু শেখ মুজিবুর রহমান স্বাধীন সার্বভৌম এই বাংলাদেশে একটি নতুন ধারার বিচার অঙ্গন প্রতিষ্ঠায় সংকল্পবদ্ধ ছিলেন। তিনি চাইতেন মানবিক গুণ সম্পন্ন মেধাবান বিচারক ও প্রশিক্ষিত আইনজীবী বৃন্দের সমন্বয়ে গড়ে ওঠা দুর্নীতিমুক্ত আইন প্রাঙ্গণ। এ প্রক্রিয়ায় মেডিয়েশন বান্ধব বিচার প্রাঙ্গণ গড়ে তুলতে বিমস সংকল্পবদ্ধ। ইতিমধ্যে আমরা জেনেছি আজকে প্রশিক্ষণের বিষয় হচ্ছে ইন্সপিরেশন স্পিসেস অন মিডিয়েশন, যার দুটি অংশ, একটি হচ্ছে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স প্রসেসেস এবং অপর অংশ হচ্ছে পিস রিলেটিং টু কমিউনিকেশন। অ্যাক্রিডিটেড মেডিয়েটর হিসাবে প্রাক মিডিয়েশন কালে আমরা সবাই বক্তব্য রাখবার সময় বিষয় দুটির প্রতি সতর্ক থাকব। আমরা প্রশিক্ষণ 40 ঘন্টা প্রশিক্ষণ চলাকালে আমরা জেনেছি যে মিডিয়েশন শুরু করার দুটি ধাপ আছে। প্রাক মিডিয়েশন একটা বক্তব্য দিতে হয়। কি বক্তব্য দিবেন? আমি মিস্টার সোয়াংশ, আমার যোগ্যতা সেম সোয়াংশ ন। এই যোগ্যতা বিষয়ে আজকে উচ্চতর প্রশিক্ষণ আপনারা কিছু সিলেক্টেড তাদেরকে আমরা গ্রহণ করেছি। পরবর্তীকালে আমাদের মাথায় রাখতে হবে, আমরা যদি মেডিয়েশনটাকে অন্তরে ধারণ করতে পারি তবেই কিন্তু আমরা সফল হব। সেই কারণে আমরা প্রথম বলার চেষ্টা করছি ইন্সপিরেশন, যার বাংলা অর্থ ইচ্ছা শক্তি, মিডিয়েশন অঙ্গনে। আমরা যারা প্র্যাকটিস করি, ল প্রফেশন আছি, আমরা জানি অর্ডার 14 ইস্যু, এটাই মিডিয়েশনের ভাষায় বলা হয় বিচার্য বিষয় একই, কিন্তু সেই বিষয় স্থির করতে গিয়ে আমাদের কিছু চিহ্নিত রূপ বের করতে হয় লিটিগ্যান্ট যারা রয়েছেন তাদের মধ্য থেকে, অর্থাৎ বিবদমান পক্ষের মধ্য থেকে। সেই কথাটাকে আমরা বলছি ইন্সপিরেশন এর দুটো অংশ। ইনফ্লুয়েন্স আপনি এর আগে প্রশিক্ষণে জেনেছেন, মিস্টার অ্যান্টিনো আলোচনা করেছিলেন, ইনফ্লুয়েন্স অবশ্যই প্রাতিষ্ঠানিক অপ্রাতিষ্ঠানিক। যখন আমরা প্রতিষ্ঠানের মধ্যে দিয়ে অগ্রসর হই, নিশ্চয়ই আপনাদের একটি শক্তি আছে, সেই শক্তিটার নাম ছায়া শক্তি। একটি ইউনিয়ন পরিষদের চেয়ারম্যান থেকে শুরু করে জাতিসংঘ পর্যন্ত আপনাদের একটি ছায়া শক্তি। তাহলে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স করা তো প্রয়োজন নয়। ইনফ্লুয়েন্স কথাটা অর্থ কিন্তু হচ্ছে, আজকে আমরা জানার চেষ্টা করব আমাদের প্রিয় ট্রেনার অপূর্বা প্যাটেলের মাধ্যমে। অর্থাৎ আমরা যে কথা বলছি, প্রাক মিডিয়েশনের দুটি অংশ থাকবে, ইনফ্লুয়েন্স অফ দি প্রসেস, আরটা হচ্ছে পিস কমিউনিকেশন। মিডিয়েশনের প্রথম কথাটায় প্রিয়াঙ্কা চক্রবর্তী আলোচনা করতে বলেছিলেন এবং জাস্টিস গীতা মিত্তাল বলেছিলেন, দুটার কথা যে একত্রে আমরা করি, কমিউনিকেট পাশাপাশি শান্তি। শান্তি পথে যে যাত্রা, সেই যাত্রাকে আমরা বলছি ইন্সপিরেশন, ইচ্ছা শক্তি। সেই ইচ্ছা শক্তির মাধ্যমে আমরা আমাদের কথা, আমাদের আচরণ কোথায় প্লেস করব, প্রাক মিডিয়েশন কালে বিবদমান দুইটি পক্ষের কাছে উপস্থাপন করব। মিডিয়েশন অঙ্গনে ইন্সপিরেশনের বাংলা অর্থ হচ্ছে ইচ্ছা শক্তি। অর্থাৎ মিডিয়েশন শব্দটি বাংলা অর্থ যদি শক্তি হিসাবে গণ্য করি, তবে সেই শক্তিটি বিবদমান দুটি পক্ষের মধ্যে সঞ্চালন করা উৎস হচ্ছে ইন্সপিরেশন, অর্থাৎ উভয়ের ইচ্ছা শক্তি। আমি অ্যাক্টিভিটি মেডিটেটর হিসাবে যদি মনে করি যে আমি মীমাংসা করব, আমি ব্যর্থ হব যদি না দুইটি পক্ষের মধ্যে ওই ইচ্ছা শক্তি জাগরিত করতে না পারি। অর্থাৎ আমরা বলার চেষ্টা করছি দুটি পক্ষ যাতে শান্তি স্থাপনের অনুকূলে মতামত ব্যক্ত করতে পারে, সেই অনুশীলনের যে চালিকা শক্তি, সেই শক্তি থাকবে অ্যাক্টিভিটি মেডিটেটরের। তাহলে অ্যাক্টিভিটি মেডিটেটরের ভূমিকাটা অতি বেশি। কিন্তু আমরা প্রথম প্রশিক্ষণে কি জেনেছি, সেই প্রশিক্ষণের ম্যাডাম মেডলিন যে কথাটা বলেছিলেন, সেই শক্তিটা আন্তরিকভাবে সঞ্চারিত হতে হবে। অর্থাৎ আমি কিছু না, অ্যাক্টিভিটি মেডিটেশন হিসেবে আমরা বসে আছি, কিন্তু আমাদের চালিকা শক্তি হচ্ছে আমাদের অনুভূতি। সেই অনুভূতির নামটা কি? ইচ্ছা শক্তি। আমি যদি ইচ্ছা পোষণ করতে পারি ওই দুইটি পক্ষের মধ্যে, তাহলে দুইটা পক্ষ যদি মনে করে আমি মিডিয়েশন করব, আমি শান্তি স্থাপন করব, তাহলেই সম্ভব। স্বাভাবিকভাবে উদাহরণ আমরা বারবার যেটা দিয়ে থাকি, বিশেষ করে ভিয়েতনামে আমরা লক্ষ্য করে থাকি, তাদের ঘরে ঘরে কিন্তু আমরা যেটা পার্টিশন মামলা বলি, বন্টক মামলা, তাদের ওয়াথা ওরা বলে থাকে। তো সেখানে কিন্তু দেখা যায়, আমরা তো জানি যে কে কত অংশ পাবে। ইন বাংলাদেশ অলসো আমার হিন্দু জিওলজি ইনহেরিটেন্স চ্যাপ্টার, মুসলিম ফিলসফি এবং মুসলিম ইনহেরিটেন্স চ্যাপ্টার থেকে আমরা বলতে পারি, খ্রিস্টান এখানে রয়েছেন, তাদের তো একটা ইনহেরিটেন্স ল আছে, আমরা বলতে পারি কে কতটুকু পাবে। তারপর মামলা কেন? আর পার্টিশন মামলা দেখতে গেলেই নিম্ন আদালত থেকে উচ্চ আদালত পর্যন্ত একটু দূরে রাখে, বাট পার্টিশন মামলা কিন্তু সহজ। তা পার্টিশন মামলা কেন আসে? এই কারণে আসে, ইগো থেকে আসে, অহংভাব থেকে আসে। একটা ধনী হয়তো পরিবারে আমার বোনকে বিয়ে দিয়েছি, সে দুলাভাই বলি, জামাইবাবু বলি, তাদের ইনফ্লুয়েন্স সেক্রেটারি কাজ করে, না দেবো না, মামলা চলে। হয়তো দুর্দান্ত টাইপের ভাই, ইত্যাদি ইত্যাদি। আমরা যে কথা বলার চেষ্টা করছি, এই কথাটা যে মিডিয়েশন অনুকূলে ইচ্ছা শক্তিকে জাগ্রত যদি করতে আমরা ব্যর্থ হই, মিডিয়েশন ব্যর্থ। আর যদি আমরা জাগ্রত করতে পারি, মিডিয়েশন সফল। এক্ষেত্রে একজন মেডিয়েটর হিসাবে আমাদের স্বভাব নির্মল করতে হবে, মনকে নিয়ন্ত্রণ করতে হবে। মনে রাখতে হবে, যেরকম অন্ধকারে আলো উজ্জ্বল হয় ঠিক তেমনি সত্য সবসময় উজ্জ্বল হয়। মানুষকে বিরোধমুক্ত রাখতে হলে একজন মেডিয়েটর সর্বতভাবে বিশ্বাস করবে সত্যকে আমি সত্য বলতে হয় না, অথচ মিথ্যা সবসময় দাবি করে আমি সত্য। আমাদের মধ্যে একটি প্রক্রিয়া আমরা লক্ষ্য করে থাকি পৃথিবীর বিভিন্ন দেশে, আমাদের শুধু বাংলাদেশে না। আমি জানি মিথ্যা বলছি। এর আগে আমাদের একজন পুলিশ অফিসার একটা সাবজেক্ট আপনাদের কাছে উপস্থাপন করেছিলেন যে আমি জানি মিথ্যা বলছো ইত্যাদি। প্রত্যেকটি কথার মধ্য থেকে একজন অ্যাক্টিভ মেডিয়েটর বিরোধমান পক্ষের কাছ থেকে কথা বের করে নেবে। তাহলে ভূমিকাটা কি হচ্ছে? নির্মল স্বভাব দ্বারা সত্যকে সামনে রেখে আগাতে হবে। কিন্তু সত্য কোনদিন বলে না আমি সত্য, কিন্তু মিথ্যা সবসময় বলে আমি সত্য, আমি সত্য। আল্লাহর কিরা, ভগবানের কিরা, ঈশ্বরের কিরা, এক্সেট্রা এক্সেট্রা। এই কথাগুলো কিন্তু আমাদের মাথায় রাখতে হবে। সেই পুলিশ অফিসার ট্রেনিং এর সময় কি বলেছিলেন? প্রত্যেকটা অনুসন্ধিৎস মনের মধ্য থেকে যে কথা বেরিয়ে আসে ওই কথাটাকেও আমাদের দেখতে হবে। আপনারা সবাই অ্যাক্টিভেট মেডিটেশন হিসাবে সেই সময়ে ওনার ক্লাসটা ফলো করেছিলেন। একটি ছেলে বাবাকে হত্যা করেছিল, একটা ছেলে বাবাকে হত্যা করেছে। কিভাবে আসলো, কিভাবে উদ্ধার হলো? কথার দ্বারা। অর্থাৎ মিথ্যা সবসময় একটা উৎস রেখে যায় মেডিটেশন জগতে। সেই কারণে আজকে স্মরণ করি পার্লামেন্টের স্পিকার ডক্টর শিরিন শারমিন চৌধুরী লিগাল এড অফিসার অবলিক মেডিয়েটর নামটা রেখেছিলেন। কারণটা কি? কি কারণ ছিল? এই কারণটাই ছিল যে সত্যকে অনুসন্ধান করার প্রক্রিয়াকে ত্বরান্বিত করার জন্য। সেই সময় প্রশ্ন এসেছিল এই মেডিটের কথাতে কি হবে। আজকে আমরা প্রমাণ করতে পেরেছি ওই সময় দরকার ছিল, 2017 সালে দরকার ছিল মেডিয়েটর কথাটা। আমরা কি বলছি? এই প্রশিক্ষণের মধ্য থেকে আমরা একটি কথা বিশ্বাস করতে চাই যে অ্যাক্টিভিটি মেডিয়েটরের মন নির্মল হবে, বি অনেস্ট হবে, সঙ্গে সঙ্গে সত্য অনুসন্ধান করতে গিয়ে মিথ্যার সারথি আমরা হব না। কারণ আমরা থিওরিটিক্যালি জানতে পারছি অম্বুডসম্যান কমিটি যে সিদ্ধান্ত নিয়েছে যে সত্যের পিছনে আমরা যেমন তড়িঘড়ি ঘুরবো না, আবার মিথ্যাকে প্রশ্রয় দিব না। কারণটা কি? মিথ্যা সবসময় দাবি করে আমি সত্য, কিন্তু সত্য কোনো সময় দাবি করে না যে আমি সত্য। ইনফ্লুয়েন্স প্রসেসের ছোট অর্থ হলো ভালোবাসা সবসময় ক্ষমা চাইতে পছন্দ করে, কিন্তু অহংকার সর্বদা ক্ষমা শুনতে পছন্দ করে। মোট কথা, দুদিনব্যাপী অনুষ্ঠব্য প্রশিক্ষণ শেষে আমরা নিশ্চয়ই দাবি করতে পারবো একটি ঝাঁটা ময়লা কিংবা আবর্জনা পরিষ্কার করে, কিন্তু বিচ্ছিন্ন হলে তা আবর্জনা হয়ে যায়। এক্ষেত্রে বঙ্গবন্ধুর 7ই মার্চের ভাষণ, যা আমাদের পবিত্র সংবিধানের অংশ, তা বারংবার অনুসরণ করতে পারি। আমরা বলতে চেষ্টা করছি সেই কথাটিকে, যে কথাটি প্রথমেই হচ্ছে ক্ষমা সুন্দর মন থাকবে। যদি আপনি সত্যিকারী প্রকৃত মেডিটেটর হন, সবসময় ক্ষমা চোখে দেখবেন। আমি ক্ষমা পছন্দ করি, কিন্তু যার অহংভাব রয়েছে তিনি কিন্তু ক্ষমাটা শুনতে পছন্দ করেন। আমরা কি বলার চেষ্টা করছি? আমাদের সম্মানিত সভাপতি সিনিয়র অ্যাডভোকেট সুপ্রিম কোর্ট বার কথাটাকে আমরা এইভাবে এক্সপ্রেস করছি। সেই কথাটি হচ্ছে এইভাবে যে আমি একজন মানুষ, আমাকে এসে বলুক আমি ক্ষমা চাই ভাই, আমি ক্ষমা চাই স্যার, আমি কিন্তু পছন্দ করি। মনে রাখতে হবে ওই প্রথম ট্রেনিং এর ইগো সুপার ইগো আমার মধ্যে রয়েছে। আমি অ্যাক্টিভেট মেডিটেটর হিসেবে ব্যর্থ, কারণ আমি আপনার কাছে ক্ষমা চাইতে বেশি উৎসাহী হব। অর্থাৎ কথাটা একটু ঘুরিয়ে নিতে হবে। আমি ক্ষমা প্রার্থী স্যার, আমি ক্ষমা চাই ভাই, কিন্তু আমার মধ্যে যদি সেই ইগো কাজ করে তো আমি পছন্দ করবো আপনি আমাকে বলেন আমি ক্ষমা চাই। তাই বলা হচ্ছে ক্ষমা চাইতে যারা বেশি পছন্দ করে এর অ্যাক্টিভেট মেডিটেট হওয়ার যোগ্য নয়। কথাটা রুড়ো না, কথাটা সহজভাবে নিতে হবে। উদাহরণ দিয়ে একটি ঝাড়ু, বাংলাদেশের প্রচলন রয়েছে, পৃথিবীর বিভিন্ন জায়গায় রয়েছে, বিভিন্ন টাইপের ঝাড়ু রয়েছে। আমাদের এখানে সাধারণত এই নারকেলের ইয়েতে বেশি আমরা করে থাকি। একসঙ্গে যখন মুষ্টিবদ্ধ থাকে ওরে কিন্তু আবর্জনা পুষে করা যাচ্ছে, ছড়িয়ে দেন ওরে কিন্তু নিজের আবর্জনা হয়ে গেল। বিইং অ্যাক্টিভেট মেডিটেটর, আমি যদি মনে করি আমি সত্যিকারী ভাবে একটা বিবাদ মীমাংসা করব, তাহলে ইচ্ছা শক্তিকে সামনে রেখে, প্রসেস ইনফ্লুয়েন্স প্রসেসকে দূরে রেখে, কমিউনিকেশনটাকে হাতের সামনে রেখে আবর্জনা দূর করতে চাই, তাহলে সঙ্গবদ্ধ যে ইনফ্লুয়েন্স, যেটা প্রথমেই বললাম ছায়া শক্তি, সেই ছায়া শক্তিকে আমরা এগিয়ে নিব। 7ই মার্চের ভাষণে বঙ্গবন্ধু যে কথাটা বলেছিলেন, সে কথাকে বারবার, আমাদের কনস্টিটিউশন একটা অংশ, বাংলাদেশ সংবিধান একটা অংশ, সে অংশটাকে বারবার আমাদের অনুসরণ করতে হবে, বারবার জানতে হবে, তবে আমরা সার্থক মেডিটেটর হতে পারি। আমরা পিস রিলেটিং টু কমিউনিকেশন হচ্ছে উইন উইন সিচুয়েশন, অর্থাৎ বিরোধমুক্ত শক্তির দৃষ্টিতে হ্যাপিনেস একটি উপাদান। একটা পরিবারের শান্তি স্থাপন করতে চায়, তাহলে এই রিকোয়ারমেন্টসটা কি? প্রত্যেকটা একটা উপাদান থাকে, সেই উপাদানটাই হচ্ছে হ্যাপিনেস। হ্যাপিনেসকে আমরা ভাগ এভাবে করতে পারি: ডোন্ট হেট, ডোন্ট ওয়ারি, গিভ মোর, এক্সপেক্ট লেস, লিভ সিম্পল। সিম্পল কথাটা, অর্থাৎ হ্যাপিনেসটা তখনই আমার ভিতরে যদি থাকে, আমি বিয়োগাত্মক পক্ষের মধ্যে আনতে পারি, এটা সফল হব। এই স্লোগানটা মাথায় রাখতে হবে। সেই স্লোগানের অংশ ডোন্ট হেট, আমি কাউকে ঘৃণা করব না। পরিশেষকে বলা হচ্ছে সাধারণ জীবন যাপন করব। সেই জীবন যাপনের পরিপূর্ণতা আসবে একটা কমিউনিকেশনের মাধ্যমে। সেইটা কি? টুয়ার্ডস পিস, শান্তির সপক্ষে। আমরা সবাই টমাস আলভা এডিসন সম্পর্কে জানি। উনি একজন বিজ্ঞানী, এই কথা নতুন করে বলার কিছু নাই। আর জীবনের দুটি চিঠি অনুশীলন আমরা করতে পারি অ্যাজ মেডিটেটর। প্রথম কথা হচ্ছে, প্রথম চিঠি, সেই চিঠিটার উৎসটা সেইভাবে, এডিসন খুব নির্বোধ টাইপের একজন ছেলে ছিল, ক্লাসের সবচেয়ে দুর্বল সে ছিল, লেখাপড়ায় মনোযোগী, কিন্তু মেডিকেল সায়েন্স এটা বলে নির্বোধতা, এটা তার ছিল। স্কুল থেকে তো একটা চিঠি দেওয়া হয়েছিল, সেই চিঠিটার পরিপূর্ণতা হচ্ছে তাকে স্কুল থেকে বহিষ্কার করে দেওয়া। তার মাকে ডেকে নেওয়া হলো, তার মাকে চিঠিটা ধরিয়ে দেওয়া হলো, উনি বাসায় আসলেন, কান্না করছেন। টমাস এডিসন জিজ্ঞেস করছেন, মা তুমি কান্না করো কেন? যে দেখো তুমি এত বুদ্ধিমান, এত সচেতন, আমার এই ছোট শহরে তোমাকে শিক্ষা দেওয়ার মতো শিক্ষক নাই, তাই চিন্তা করছি বড় শহরে যেতে হবে, আমি কিভাবে যাব, কিভাবে পরিচালনা করব, ইত্যাদি ইত্যাদি। বড় শহরে গেলেন, উচ্চ শিক্ষায় শিক্ষিত হলেন, বড় বিজ্ঞানী হলেন, মা মারা গেলেন। এরপরে ওনার সেই ছোট্ট বাড়িতে গেলেন, ঘর ঝাড়ু দিচ্ছেন, একটা চিঠি পেলেন। সেই চিঠিটা অ্যাক্টিভেট মেডিটেটর হিসাবে আমাদের কাছে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। চিঠিতে কি লেখা ছিল? ম্যাডাম, আপনার ছেলে টমাস এডিসন একজন মেন্টালি রিটার্ডেড। সে এতটাই নির্বোধ যে তাকে শিক্ষা দেওয়ার মতন ক্ষমতা আমাদের নেই, কারো আছে বলে ও আমাদের জানা নেই। আপনার ছেলের কারণে আমাদের স্কুলটির সুনাম ক্ষুণ্ণ হবে, তাই কমিটির সিদ্ধান্ত অনুযায়ী আপনার ছেলেকে স্কুল থেকে স্থায়ীভাবে বহিষ্কার করা হবে। মেডিটেটর হিসাবে, অ্যাক্টিভেট মেডিটেটর হিসাবে এই চিঠি দুটোকে স্মরণে রাখতে হবে। ফ্যামিলি কোর্টে আমরা যেটা জানি, জাস্টিস কে হাসানের একটা অনুসন্ধানমূলক একটি গবেষণাপত্র আছে। বেলটি বাংলাদেশ ল টাইমসের রিসার্চ গ্রুপের মধ্যে উনি সেই রিসার্চ কাজটি করেছিলেন। আপনি অংশ নিতে পারেন। ওপেন, বাংলাদেশ ল টাইমস সবার জন্য ওপেন, গবেষণামূলক একটি প্রতিষ্ঠান, একটি অংশ আছে, আপনারা সেখানে যোগদান করতে পারেন। বিইং এডিটর, আমি আপনাকে আহ্বান রাখতে পারি, আপনাদের মতন তরুণ তরজাদা অ্যাক্টিভেটেড মেডিটর প্রচুর প্রয়োজন। কারণ জাস্টিস কে হাসান যখন আমাদের নিয়ে একটি লিগাল স্টাডি জাস্টিস মুস্তফা কামালের নেতৃত্বে করেছিলেন, বিভিন্ন কোর্ট আমরা ভ্রমণ করলাম। ছোট ছোট বিষয়ে ফ্যামিলি ডিস্টার্ব হচ্ছে, ছোট কারণে আমরা তাকে উৎসাহ করি না, আমরা শুনে দেখো না, সলিউশন করো না, আপোষ করো না। এই তামাস চিঠি দ্বারা যদি আমরা তাকে অনুপ্রাণিত করতে পারি যে না, আপনার হাজবেন্ড আপনার সঙ্গে ভালো বলে, আপনার ওয়াইফ আপনার সঙ্গে ভালো বলে, ইত্যাদি ইত্যাদি, এই যে ইত্যাদি কথা কি কমিউনিকেট করা, তাহলে পরিবারে কিন্তু শান্তি আসতে পারত। 84টি মামলা আমরা নিষ্পত্তি করেছিলাম বিফোর ফ্যামিলি কোর্ট অর্ডিন্যান্স 1985 অর্ডিন্যান্সের আগে। কিভাবে সফল হয়েছিল? তদানীন্তন প্রধান বিচারপতি জাস্টিস কে হাসান, প্রধান বিচারপতি জাস্টিস মোস্তফা কামাল এবং কিছু তরুণ তরচাদা আপনাদের মতন প্রাণকে নিয়ে আমরা গবেষণা দ্বারা আমরা প্রতিষ্ঠা করতে পেরেছিলাম একমাত্র ঢাকা কোর্টে। বর্তমান জাস্টিস এম কুদ্দুজ্জামান সাহেব যখন উনি ঢাকা কোর্টে জাজ ছিলেন, সাব জাজ ছিলেন, পরে ডিসি জাজ হয়েছিলেন, তাকে আমরা সেদিন পেয়েছি, সহযোগিতা করেছিলেন। উনি সহযোগিতা না করলে তখন তো ঢাকা কোর্টে আমরা করতে পারতাম না। কিভাবে? ওই উদাহরণটা সামনে রেখে ফ্যামিলি কোর্ট অর্ডিন্যান্সের মধ্যে বিরোধ নিষ্পত্তির জন্য একটা অংশ রাখা হয়েছিল। আমরাও পারি অ্যাক্টিভেটেড মেডিটেশন হিসাবে আমরা বিরোধ মুক্ত একটি সমাজ কাঠামো তৈরি করতে পারি, নির্ভর করবে শুধু আমাদের ইচ্ছা শক্তির উপরে। সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ। আমি এখন অনুরোধ রাখবো আমাদের প্রিয় ট্রেনার, আজকের কোর্স ডাইরেক্টর ডক্টর অপূর্বা প্যাটেলকে তার বিষয়টি উপস্থাপন করার জন্য। সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ।
Beloved participants of the dais, please forgive me for the sore throat. In the meantime, the settings gets done. Let's get started. I think Goswami sir has spoken enough about I think influence processes. You say something, right? So can you briefly share what are your takeaways from what sir has shared until now? Yes, anything, because help me to understand. I do not understand Bengali, so I want you to help me to understand what sir delivered. Back after 15 minutes when the laptop is shown.
আমাদের অনিবার্য কারণবশত ওনার প্রেজেন্টেশনটা আমরা পরে শুনবো। এখন আমি অনুরোধ রাখবো আমাদের বাংলাদেশ সুপ্রিম কোর্টের প্রিয় সভাপতি, সিনিয়র অ্যাডভোকেট মিস্টার মুমতাজ বিন আহমেদ স্যার তার উপস্থাপন করবেন।
সম্মানিত সভাপতি বিজয় বি ভারতীয়, পিস অ্যাক্টিভিস্ট ভিমস ইন্টারন্যাশনাল কোঅর্ডিনেটর, বাংলাদেশ সুপ্রিম কোর্টের হাইকোর্ট বিভাগের মাননীয় হাইকোর্টের বিচারপতি জনাব আহমেদ সোহেল, উপস্থিত আছেন আমাদের নেপাল সুপ্রিম কোর্ট বার অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের সম্মানিত সভাপতি সিনিয়র অ্যাডভোকেট হরিশঙ্কর নিরুলা, আমাদের ট্রেনার ডক্টর অপূর্ব প্যাটেল এবং মঞ্চে উপবিষ্ট আছেন আমাদের আরেক গেস্ট, সামনে উপবিষ্ট সুধীমণ্ডলী, শুভ সকাল। অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমি এখানে এসেছি লেট করে, সেটার জন্য আমি আগে ক্ষমা প্রার্থী, এটা আমার আসলে উচিত হয় না। আমার সময় মতোই আসা উচিত ছিল, এটার জন্য আমি ক্ষমা প্রার্থী। বিশেষ করে আজকের যে অনুষ্ঠান অত্যন্ত তাৎপর্যপূর্ণ, আধুনিক সমাজ রাষ্ট্র, সেটার জন্য গত বছর এই বিমসির একটা অনুষ্ঠানে আমি উপস্থিত ছিলাম। সেখানে আজকের যে প্রধান অতিথি আবার সোহেল, মাননীয় বিচারপতি হাইকোর্ট ডিভিশন বাংলাদেশে, এবং আরও একজন বিচারপতি ছিলেন মোহাম্মদ আব্দুর রশিদ, উনি কিছুদিন আগে পরলোক গমন করেছেন, ওনার জন্য আমি শোক জানাচ্ছি। যাই হোক, আজকের অনুষ্ঠানটা অত্যন্ত তাৎপর্যপূর্ণ। বর্তমান সমাজে এই স্মার্ট যুগে, ইন্টেলেকচুয়াল আর্টিফিশিয়াল ইন্টেলেকচুয়ালের যুগে অত্যন্ত তাৎপর্যপূর্ণ। আমরা যে আজকের অনুষ্ঠানের প্রতিপাদ্য বিষয় হলো ইন্সপাইরেশনাল স্পিচেস অন মিডিয়েশন। এই মিডিয়েশন শব্দটা আজকের যুগ নয়, আদি যুগ থেকে এটা প্রচলিত, সভ্যতার শুরু থেকেই এটা প্রচলন ছিল। আমরা দেখেছি ছোট সময় আমার বাড়ি গ্রামে, সেখানে একটা সমাজ ব্যবস্থা ছিল। সেই সমাজ ব্যবস্থায় যারা সমাজপতি ছিলেন, এই সমাজপতিরা দায় দায়িত্ব নিতেন। যদি কোনো জায়গায় ঝগড়াঝাটি বিবাদ বিদ্বেষ হইতো, তারা দায়িত্ব নিয়ে সেই সমস্যার সমাধান করতেন। যখন এই সাবকন্টিনেন্টে মেয়র কোর্ট প্রতিষ্ঠিত হয়, তখনও সেই ব্যবস্থা ছিল। কাজী বিচার ব্যবস্থা যখন ছিল, তখনও ছিল। কাজে মিডিয়েশন ব্যতীত কোনো আইন করে কোনো ঝগড়া বিবাদ, কোনো মামলা মোকদ্দমা আদৌ কখনো শেষ হয়েছে কিনা আমার জানা নেই। লিটিগেশনটা থেকেই যায়, এখানে কোনো সহজে লাইফ থাকে না। যে কারণে সেটার উপর রবীন্দ্রনাথ ঠাকুর বলেছিলেন যে সহজিয়া লাইফ আমাদের জীবনে খুব প্রয়োজন। সেলফ কনসিডারেশন কনসাস যদি কাজ না করে, এই পৃথিবীতে কখনো শান্তি আসবে না। শান্তির জন্য মিডিয়েশন অত্যন্ত প্রয়োজন। বিশেষ করে আমাদের আইনজীবী সমাজ, এখানে যারা আইনজীবী আছেন, তার বাহিরেও যারা আছেন, কনসাস পিপল যারা আছেন, এই শান্তির জন্য যারা একটু বুঝেন, দায়িত্ব নিতে হবে। কারণ সমাজের ন্যাচারাল লিডার হলো আইনজীবী। আইনজীবীদের সমস্ত দায়িত্ব সমাজের, যে যেভাবেই বলুক, পৃথিবীর শ্রেষ্ঠ পেশা হলো আইনজীবী পেশা, এর উপরে কখনো পেশা হয় না। একজন আইনজীবী সমাজের নেতা, ন্যাচারাল লিডার। তার কাছে আমাদের বাংলাদেশে যদি 18 কোটি মানুষ হয়, সেখানে প্রত্যেকটি মানুষের টাচ থাকে, তার কাছে আসবেই, যে কোনোভাবেই তাদের কাছে আসতে হয়। রাজনীতি বলেন, অর্থনীতি বলেন, সমাজনীতি বলেন, যে কোনো বিষয়ে তাদের কাছে মানুষ আসে। তাদের প্রথম দায়িত্ব থাকবে এই যে দুই পক্ষের মধ্যে বিবাদ বিদ্বেষ যেগুলো আছে, সেটা কিভাবে মিনিমাইজ করা যায়, যেটা কখনো কোর্টে যাতে যেতে না হয়। নিজেরা বসে সেটা সমস্যার সমাধান করতে হবে, দায়িত্ব দিতে হবে, মানুষকে কনসাস করতে হবে। কারণ এই কম্প্রোমাইজ ছাড়া দাম্পত্য জীবনও সুখের হয় না। এই মিডিয়েশন দাম্পত্য জীবনে এটা প্রয়োজন, পরিবারে প্রয়োজন, পরিবারের প্রয়োজন। এই মিডিয়েশন ছাড়া দাম্পত্য জীবন, পরিবার, সমাজ কখনো সমৃদ্ধ হয় না, শান্তি বিরাজ করে। সেটার প্রতি আমাদের সকলে ইয়ে রাখতে হবে। ব্যক্তি জীবনে সেটার যদি আপনার প্রতিফলন ঘটাতে পারেন, তাহলে আপনি সুখী হবেন, শান্তি হবেন, আরেকজনকে শান্তি দিতে পারবেন। ধর্মীয় নেতা যারা ছিলেন, ধর্মীয় গুরু যারা ছিলেন, আমাদের নবী করিম সাল্লাল্লাহু আলাইহি সাল্লাম, স্বামী বিবেকানন্দ, যারা আছে, প্রত্যেকেই শান্তির কথা বলেছেন। যারা ফলো করেছেন তারাই শান্তিতে আছে। লোভ লালসার ঊর্ধ্বে থেকে তারা সমাজের কাজ করেছেন, ইন্সপায়ার করেছেন সবাইকে। আপনারা গুরুদায়িত্ব আমাদের মহান জাতির মহান নেতা জাতির পিতা বঙ্গবন্ধু শেখ মুজিবুর রহমান, তার নেতৃত্বে ওই যে আমি এসে শুনছিলাম আমার দাদা বক্তৃতা করেছিলেন 7ই মার্চের ভাষণ মানুষকে ইন্সপায়ার করেছে, উদ্বুদ্ধ করেছে, মুক্তি সংগ্রামের জন্য তৈরি করেছে। তারপরে আলোচনায় ছিলেন, আলোচনা করেছেন কিভাবে এই এমিকেবলি যুদ্ধ ছাড়া দেশকে স্বাধীন করে যায়, মানুষের অধিকার আদায় করা যায়। ব্যর্থ হয়ে পরবর্তী সময়ের যুদ্ধে যে ঝাঁপিয়ে পড়েছেন, বাংলাদেশ স্বাধীন করেছেন। জাতির পিতা বঙ্গবন্ধু শেখ মুজিবুর রহমান সারাটা জীবন আন্দোলন সংগ্রাম করেছেন, জেল কেটেছেন, আইনের মুখোমুখি হয়েছেন, আক্ষেপ করেছেন, আমাদের বিচার ব্যবস্থা, পৃথিবীর বিচার ব্যবস্থা নিয়ে আক্ষেপ করেছেন। সমাধান নেই, সমাধান কোথাও হয় না। 54-এ গ্রেপ্তার হয়ে দেখেন 24 ঘন্টার বেশি আটক রাখা যায় না, 6 মাস হাজতে থেকে কারাবরণ করেছে, পরিশেষে খালাসপ্রাপ্ত হয়েছে। আক্ষেপ করেছেন। বঙ্গবন্ধু চেয়েছিলেন সহজ সরল একটা বিচার ব্যবস্থা, সহজে মানুষকে কিভাবে সমাধান দেওয়া যায়, ফৌজদারি মামলায় থানায় যেন সেটা সমাধান হয়ে যায়, টেবিল বিচার ব্যবস্থা, জুডিশিয়ারি যারা থাকবে, যেখানে ঝগড়া হবে সেখানে চলে যাবে। ওই যে আমাদের একটা কথা আছে না, দিল্লি ডিফিট সিকিউরিটি, যত দিন যাবে মামলার বিচার হবে না, সাক্ষী পাওয়া যাবে না, আস্তে আস্তে সেটা তার অধিকার থেকে বঞ্চিত হয়ে বিচার পাবে না, অপরাধীরা খালাস হয়ে যাবে। বঙ্গবন্ধু চেয়েছিলেন যেখানে ঘটনা ঘটবে সেখানে চলে যাবে মানুষ, বিচার বিভাগের প্রতিনিধিরা, আইন শৃঙ্খলার সাথে যারা জড়িত আছে সেখানে যাবে, সেটা এমিকেবলি হোক এবং সেটা সমস্যার সমাধান করবে মানুষ। আমরা যারা এখানে উপস্থিত হয়েছেন প্রত্যেকেই সচেতন। আমরা ইচ্ছা করলে এই সমাজ ব্যবস্থাকে পরিবর্তন ঘটাইতে পারি। কথা একটি, যত ট্রেনিং নেন, যত কিছুই করেন না কেন, সহজভাবে জিনিসগুলো ভাবতে হবে, মানবতাবোধ কাজ করতে হবে, ইগো থেকে দূরে থাকতে হবে। আমাদের যে বর্তমান সমাজ ব্যবস্থা মানুষকে ইগো তৈরি করেছে, শিক্ষা ব্যবস্থা মানুষকে ইগো তৈরি করেছে। আমরা এখানে অনেকে বক্তৃতা দিব, বক্তৃতা চলে যাব, বাসায় গিয়ে যে আমার ড্রাইভার, কাজের লোক, এরা যারা আছে ওদেরকে আলাদা করে দিব। সেও যে একজন মানুষ, তার যে একটা অধিকার আছে সেটার প্রতি আমরা সচেতন হই। বক্তৃতা অনেক শুনবেন, জীবনে নিজেরাও বক্তৃতা দিবেন, আমরা সেইগুলোর থেকে উপরে উঠতে পেরেছি। আমি কি আমার কাজের লোকটাকে আমার পাশে বসে খাইতে দিয়েছি? কাজের ছেলেটাকে আমার পাশে বসে খাইতে দেই? আমরা একটা টেবিলে কি বসছি কোনোদিন? কখনো আমরা এটা করি না। এই ব্যবস্থা থেকে যদি আমরা যেদিন উত্তরণ ঘটাইতে পারবো, উঠতে পারবো, সেই দিনেই পৃথিবীতে শান্তি ফিরে আসবে, মানুষের ভেদাভেদ থাকবে না। সেইটার প্রতি সকলে সচেতন থাকবেন, সেইভাবেই সমাজের কাজ করবেন। আর আইন আদালত এটা দিয়ে মানুষের কখনো ইয়া হবে না। আপনারা যে সুন্দর আয়োজন করেছেন এটার জন্য আমি অত্যন্ত কৃতজ্ঞ। এবং দাদার কাছে, দাদা যখন আমাকে বলছে, আমারও অনেক চাপ আছে। আর মাননীয় বিচারপতি সাহেবের কথা জানেন, ওনার সাথে অত্যন্ত আন্তরিকতা, আমাদের অত্যন্ত ট্যালেন্ট, এই বিষয়ে তার সম্মুখ ধারণা আছে। আমি লুবে এখানে এসেছি, আপনাদের কাছ থেকে অনেক কিছু শিখবো, শুনবো। তো মুদ্রা কথাই হইল এটা, আমরা সহজভাবে সবকিছু নিব, সহজভাবে চিন্তা করব, মানুষের অধিকার সম্বন্ধে সচেতন হব। প্রত্যেকটি নাগরিকের সুন্দরভাবে বাঁচার অধিকার আছে, আমার যেমন আছে তারও সেই অধিকার আছে। কোনো ভেদাভেদ তৈরি করা যাবে না। আজকে হবে না, কালকে হবে, হবেই। এই ব্যবস্থা না যেতে পারলে পৃথিবী কখনো শান্তিতে আসবে না। উত্তর কোরিয়া দক্ষিণ কোরিয়াকে আক্রমণ করবে। যাই হোক, এই বিভিন্ন ইয়া আছে। প্যালেস্টাইনের ঘটনাটা দেখেন, কিভাবে মানুষকে মারছে, ছোট্ট শিশু, হাসপাতাল, কি অপরাধ তাদের রাষ্ট্র, তাদের দেশ। এখানে শুধু মানবতার অভাব। সেই ইগো থেকে আমাদের সরে আসতে হবে। আমি আর বেশি কিছু বলবো না, আমি শিখবো, সেটার জন্য এসেছি। সকলকে ধন্যবাদ। আমি আবার আমার লেট করে আসার জন্য দুঃখ প্রকাশ করছি। সকলকে ধন্যবাদ। জয় বাংলা, জয় বঙ্গবন্ধু। আজকের অনুষ্ঠান সফল হচ্ছে।
বন্ধুগণ, এখন আমাদের মাঝে যে আমাদের মূল বিষয়, আমি প্রশিক্ষণ বলছি না, কারণ প্রথম থেকে আমরা যেটা বলি অভিজ্ঞতার বিনিময়টা নামই আমাদের মেডিটেশন ভাষায় প্রশিক্ষণ। Yes, Mr. Nitaula, in Vietnam, that piece converted into Bengali. That piece, today's piece is same. Only that English now is Bangla. So now I am requesting Madam Dr. Apurva Patel to present her presentation.
Thank you for setting the tone, sir. I think the respected sirs have really set the tone. I was a bit nervous because the training is on inspiration, and the audience seemed to be a bit closer into No. So I just want to hear from you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay. So are we ready for the training? Yes, we are. Okay. So that inspires me. So I should begin now. Please, sorry if you are not able to hear me or something you want me to repeat. Because I am going to sit here and do. So if there is anything in between, please let me know. Please feel free to interrupt in between and we can discuss further. So going ahead. My turn or Thank you so much, Vijay sir. I think this is really inspiring. This is how we do the mediation. Without saying, we understand and we listen the need of the other person and facilitate the things in a peaceful and amicable manner. So thank you again. So as you already know that in these 2 days sessions we are specifically I am given the responsibility to talk about 2 topics. So next slide please. First is the influence process. So what I'll be doing is taking you through understanding leadership specifically in terms of influence process, and tomorrow we will be dealing into intellectual revolutions and some reflections and discussions I hope that we do have. Next. So before going into the depth of influence processes, let me start with introducing Professor Sunny over here, whose work has influenced us, inspired us to talk today about influence processes and intellectual revolutions. So he's a renowned scholar and researcher whose contributions have very significantly advanced the understanding of how the individuals and groups influence each other. So I think we all agree with this, that sometimes even individuals, some of the examples sir has also shared, and many a times it's the groups also which influences us. So Professor Sunny's research spans over various areas which includes influence processes and social psychology, and his research has also made a significant impact on various fields including psychology, marketing, communication and political science. So pardon me if I sound more like a management teacher talking about leadership and communication, but this is how it moves on. So basically these topics are the 2 chapters from his book Platform Monologue, and the first chapter, influence process, which focuses specifically on persuasive competence and leadership as persuasion. Yes. So we will move ahead with this. So I was just wondering, what does persuasion, what do we say in Bengali, the persuasion? What is অনুপ্রেরণা? No, it is प्रभाव करना? Is patana also a word? So maybe. So let's explore what does this mean. So starting with leadership, I think it's a very important, very interesting area also. How many of you want to be a leader? Yes. Of course, I'm not talking about political leader. No issues even in that. But yes, what type of leader? Some of our friends have raised their hand if they would. Please. Peace leader. Wow, great. Yes. So I hope this 2 days training inspires you much to be a peace leader. What else? What comes to our mind when we say or hear leadership? Is there any specific term which comes or a specific person which comes to our mind? And probably the point of reflection would be, why do we consider them as a leader?
Responsible.
Responsible. Okay.
Problem solver.
Problem solver. All right. Who comes to our mind when we hear the term leader? Yeah.
Mediators.
Huh?
Mediators.
Mediators. Okay.
Observation and sharpness.
Okay.
Influencer.
Influencers. Okay. Okay. All right. Next slide. So we know when we talk about leadership, mostly there are different terms which comes to our mind, and it depends, upon the situation, what type of leaders emerges as well. So we know about this autocratic leadership, wherein we know leaders make decisions without input from others and maintain strict controls over their teams. Okay, let's refrain ourselves from sharing the examples over here. But we know this kind of leadership also exists. Then we have laissez-faire leadership, wherein we know leaders provide minimal guidance and allow the team members to make decisions independently. Right? So maybe this definition inspires us to move towards somewhat what we call as laissez-faire leadership, because we believe in democratic or decentralized process and all of those things. And then democratic leadership, which involves team members in decision making and value their input and ideas. Right? So this is how we see various terms around leadership. Next slide. Yeah. So it was important because when we are talking about leadership, it's important to look into some of the definitions, because at the starting of the chapter, Professor Sunny talks about some. He says that so this is not a new term. It has been existing from long, but he talks about some 10 key important definitions as part of this chapter. The idea is particularly to look into, what is the emphasis, what is that quality, that skill or that characteristics which is an emphasis in all of those definitions. So maybe if we say like first definition tells us ability to articulate a compelling vision for the future and inspire others to work towards it. Do you agree with this, that this is leadership?
Yes.
What is the key component over there?
Having a vision that he can convince people with.
Very nice. So sometimes, like we know the vice chancellors of our university or somebody like that, who even after their retirement we remember, because we know that they had a vision. They knew that 5 years, 10 years down the line, I want the university to go into this direction, or I want the alumni of this university to be in this, contributing in this area, and therefore they have actually set up the stage. So we know there are leaders in this field. Best example could be of people like Nelson Mandela. Then we have another definition which talks about creating an environment where individuals can thrive and contribute their unique talents. Right? So mostly in terms of companies, probably we see this, in corporates also, wherein we talk about ecosystem. So nowadays this is also a buzzword wherein we talk about how is the ecosystem, which gives us that space to explore and all of that. So we know Steve Jobs for creating, or inspiring innovation and creativity at the Apple, and that's why all of us, want to have Apple in our hand. Yeah, iPhone or iPad, right? Then we talk about other terms which tells us that it means guiding a team or organization through challenges and uncertainties towards their goals, right? Which is also sometimes I think is very important, that we see somebody as a leader because we know, like somebody said that I see mediator as a leader. So maybe this is where we fit in, and as a problem solver or as somebody who can provide us a solution. So sometimes we see in a leader even that quality. So who can be a navigator, who can help us to bridge the gaps. Then putting the needs of others before oneself and serving a greater purpose. This is also a quality of a leader, and best example could be of Mother Teresa. So very important is that even the important characteristic of a leader is to be a servant, right? To serve the people. Then imparting knowledge and skills to others, empowering them to become leaders themselves. So again, Malala Yousafzai, we know her work has been inspiring a lot, especially the younger generations, the women and the girl. And so here we see that the leader, as a leader, they may also play a role of a teacher, and a learner as well. Then weaving a narrative that resonates with people and motivates them to action. So this is also important. Like I said, ecosystem. Being a storyteller is also nowadays considered as very important. So whenever you have an idea and you have a beautiful and strong story to communicate, I think it resonates with people more, right? Instead of just saying, if I start reading a paper over here, that this is the chapter and this is the contents, I think none of us would be interested in doing that. So many times it is also important that we create a story. So somebody who is very skilled in telling their narratives through story ways and these ways, they also create a lot of change or inspire people. Then being flexible and responsive to changing circumstances and adapting strategies accordingly. Very important is to have adaptability, agility, how the situations are, accordingly acting. I think you might have heard of the stories of two trees, the oak and the bamboo. And when there are strong winds, the oak stands straight and says that, why should I be flexible? Why should I bow down? But bamboo is flexible and it bows, it uses its flexibility and adaptability. And thus it stands tall even in the storm. But the oak falls down, right? So this is also very important that as a leader, there is this quality involved. Then leadership is venturing into unknown and taking calculated risk to achieve progress. So we know this also nowadays, again, we are talking a lot about risk taking and changing the narrative of traditional ways we have been thinking and moving ahead in a direction which can be transforming for not only ourselves but others as well. So we know there are a lot of social entrepreneurs around, and I think Karagari is one of the famous brand over here, and we know, I think if I'm pronouncing it right. So they with the communities and the women in the communities, they have created a community of women who produce this zamdani and silk sarees and all, right? So they've empowered women themselves. So even leadership is that through them the others get empowered. So which definition resonates with you the most from this? If you say all, then we have to create a new definition. What impressed you the most, if I put it like that?
Being a visionary.
Being a visionary. Okay.
Servant.
So ma'am, if I take the liberty and ask you, what is your vision 5 years down the line in the field of mediation, if you would like to explore?
Well, the thing is, my vision about mediation, if I can express, to have a community-based, some institutions that can actually help us in community mediation.
Okay.
That's what I think it's necessary for our communities right now.
Very great. So Vijay sir, I would request you to please note this statement, and I think this is going to be a great support for us, because yesterday only we were discussing about community mediation and
Yes.
how to mediate or take this concept within the community.
Within the community.
Within the
exactly.
community, and especially like paralegal volunteers and all of that. So that right from the grassroots, where the problem arises, if
Exactly.
there is somebody who can mediate,
Exactly.
probably people would not
And
come to
especially
you in
there
the
is-
court. Okay, so we are not reducing your clienteles. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
Okay, what other definition resonates?
Storyteller.
Sorry, storyteller. Okay, why that resonates with you, sir?
Because I feel even if you have good ideas and good intentions, if you're not able to say essential for I feel a leader to have to be able to bring everyone under one roof.
Thank you for sharing. I see an entrepreneur in you, a successful entrepreneur. So, in which storytelling is an important key. Okay, let us move ahead. So, please next slide. Yeah. So, when we come to leadership and influence, we know that if we are talking specifically about the word, influence. So, we know in Bengali, I think we say prabhav. Prabhav Dana. So, influence is the power to have an impact on the thoughts, actions. Leaders with strong influence skills can inspire and persuade. So from definitions also we understand this, that it's not only just that they, you hear a speech and it changes you. No, it helps you to reflect on that. It helps you to question sometimes that why the things are as they are. The status quo and all of those things. So not only words, but even actions can be influenced or persuaded. Leadership and influence are essential for driving effective leaders. Can create a positive work culture, especially in context of the employment and jobs, and ability to guide and inspire others. Also, effective leadership involves influencing and motivating, right? Because we are talking about influence process, so it is important to bring that in between to emphasize and re-emphasize that how within leadership influencing is an important aspect which helps us in motivating people and bringing the change. So exactly according to Professor Sunny, what is leadership? So he has investigated how leaders leverage different forms of power and influence to motivate and guide their followers. So we will be also talking about what are these different types of power or power dynamics existing. Then also there is a term which he beautifully explains is in terms of cultural influence. So wherein he recognized the role of cultural values and beliefs in shaping how individuals respond to influence attempts, right? Like ma'am said that community mediation, or sir said that storytelling. So what story or what strategies you are using for this particular purpose in this cultural context might be very different in how you would be working probably say in America, right? Or any other country for that matter. So those geographies which may have some similarity in terms of culture and all, probably we can try to replicate, but of course we need to take into consideration the cultural context when we talk about this. So Professor even highlights that, and yeah, so he is basically looking into leadership through the lens of influence processes and provides us a very important dimensions into how effective leaders operate and achieve their objectives, and how leaders motivate and guide others. Because this is important. We want to be leader, but sometimes we may wonder, that why would people listen to us? Goswami sir has made me to stand here, therefore you are listening to me. But otherwise, this as a leader, we always question ourselves that if I am going to take a lead in something, who will be the team? Or how will be the team be ready to work with me? Will they relate with what I am willing to do? Like we say community mediation again as an example. How many of us would be actually willing to participate in that? And for that, it is important that how many of us believe in, the power of community mediation, or probably the scope of community mediation, and the role it can play in this particular field. Yes, sir. Yeah, so leadership as persuasion is first emphasis which Professor talks about. He says that it's not just a position holder, but a skilled persuader who is capable of influencing others' thoughts, feelings, and actions. These are the three important words which I think we should take away with us, that how leadership is able to, influence, the other person's thoughts, feelings, and actions, right? Like, if I give you a lay example over here, there are certain advertisements, right? Not all advertisements touch us, or, when they are on screen, we feel like, when will this pass and we'll go back to what we were watching. But like, if I don't remember the name of the brand, but the tagline is, "Pehle istemal karo, fir vishwas karo," right? So it's like, it's not imposing on people something. It's giving you a scope. It's making you to believe that you have a scope to actually feel it, experience it. Does it work or not? yes, we, right? So we never forget that thing, and we would like to seek, okay, let's see if it works or not. So that way it has to influence others' thoughts, feelings, and actions, and it also hinges on the persuasive competence of the leader, shaping both behavior and thinking through compelling communication and influence strategies. Communication, again, I think in the last 40 hours mediation training, Victor sir had taken long sessions on communication, and we had discussed how communication, conversations, monologues, dialogues, and all of those things are important, and how they help us, or how they can work as a tool for us in this direction. And then on the other hand, when we talk about leadership as influencing, we talk about the dual nature of influencing, wherein affecting behavior and shaping the thinking processes are two important aspects. And there the professor defines it as the art of motivating, inspiring, and guiding others towards shared goals, adapting to different levels of willingness, and employing various influence processes. Right? So today, if I say that I'm going to make a group, how many of you would be willing to join, to explore the scope of community mediation in Bangladesh, or specifically in the rural areas of the Bangladesh? Okay. So it is a process. Somewhere it has to start. First the people should be motivated. First they should feel that it has some power. It has some potential. And then probably we move ahead. We may guide others, because some people might be interested, but they might be like, I don't see how it would work out. I could say that probably yes, it would be more helpful, but how would we reach to the people? Why would they agree to spend their time and listen to us, right? Why would they do this kind of pro bono services, when we are not willing to? How would we motivate people to do the pro bono services and all of those things? So examples of leaders influencing both actions and perspectives. It's very important. Like we know Gandhi, who's non-violent protest, and in context of perspective, we know how Malala Yousafzai's advocacy for education has brought about the change. Yes. So now let us talk about, we are talking about influencing others. So what are those ways in which we can influence others? So there are certain frameworks which Professor talks in his chapter, the frameworks for persuasion. So firstly, he talks about social power and influence. I told in the beginning that there are different types of power dynamics in this society, which we also need to understand when we are talking about motivating and influencing people. So leaders wield or possess different forms of social power, which can be broadly categorized as coercive power, wherein they use threat, or punishment to threaten or to change the things. Then there is a reward power, the ability to offer incentives or rewards. Like for my students, if I say it's a internal evaluation marks, probably they would sit, and then certificate is something which they would look forward if they feel that it's going to add to their CV. So that's the reward power which we mostly use with our students or sometimes trainers, etc. And then we talk about legitimate and positional power, where we say the authority granted by a formal authority or position or role, right? So this is, I think, self-explanatory. And then expert power, which is earned through knowledge, skills, or experience, for which all of us are here. So we know that we can be a change maker if we attain that required knowledge, skills, and experience. And then referent power, wherein the charisma or attractiveness that inspires others to follow, right? So I think Sir had mentioned about the father of the nation of Bangladesh as well. Thank you so much. And all. So we know at that point of time, there were no such loudspeakers or mics or something. And we have heard just these stories that when they used to give this speech, in the public speech, not in such a hall or closed areas, only through their lip sync, people used to follow them. They had so much of belief in them. They had so much of charisma, probably. That is also sometimes talked about, that it was their charisma, which has helped people to come together and follow him, or follow her, whatever actions they were taking. Can we think of certain examples how people or leaders use this power to influence? Who came to your mind? Aki? Okay. Which you think, what was the power used? Was it charisma? Was it legitimate or positional power? Or
I need talks.
Okay.
Everybody concerned. Everybody counted. Compulsory must have. We say in our freedom fight.
Okay. So his actions, his words were something which people related to. You know, they felt that he's taking stand for something which is of our concern, right? They are actually, but nobody else but he is something who is raising the voice against the injustice prevailing in the society, and that injustice is something which is affecting us directly. And we want somebody like him to take the lead, who we can, then associate with and achieve the objective of bringing in the equality and justice in the society. Yes.
Nelson Mandela.
Huh?
Nelson Mandela.
Right. Okay. So there are these types of powers. So leaders effectively utilize this. Whosoever means this is also a skill that we know that so for example, I may say that just because I don't have any position or I don't have that charisma or I don't have that anything through which I can create any other thing, but probably just because I have some experience or some skill in training, I could use that particular skill to motivate others. So the leaders effectively utilize these power sources to influence individuals and groups, and the power basis can be leveraged to influence others, but their effectiveness depends on the context and followers' perception. This is very important, right? It's not that we think that people would listen or my agenda is important, therefore people will follow. But it's very important, like Aki just mentioned, that we related with a particular leader because we realized that they are speaking of something which is for the majority of our concerns. So it's very important. Like I think all of us have given presentations during our school's times, or speeches during special days or something. So it was very important to know your audience. Even today we'd say that before presentation you should be knowing your audience. I always trouble Goswami sir asking him every time, sir, who would be the trainers, who would be the participants, because I need to know, who they are. If they are university students, if they are already practicing advocates, or who they are, who is the bunch of the people with lots of wisdom already, then I know how preparation has to go on. So then we use them. Yes, sir. Yes. So after social power, he talks about social influence, and he has conducted many studies on how social norms, conformity and majority rule influence individual behavior and decision making. Right? I think we agree with this, that what majority thinks, many a times that is also a trend. I see within my students that they feel that law is a very is an area where they see a lot of scope in terms of XYZ. So therefore, because 10 years back when I was graduating, I think engineering or medical was the only options we used to see. And if you are not good, you have not scored good, then you go for commerce. And then even if not that, then you go for arts. Right? The scenario has just changed now. Now I believe law is part of arts and social sciences, and now we can fight with our parents and we can influence them in return to allow us to take arts because we want to pursue law, right? So this is how things are changing. So this is very important that and around us, and because probably you might have taken and you have emerged as a best example after taking this, also now exploring the area of mediation. I'm sure that they would be inspiring many others of their generation and the below generations as well to even explore this area more, because as we discussed, we need more mediators now, right? So though it is not part of a traditional law course or something, but as we see how it is growing in Bangladesh and all, there is a high possibility that it gets as a I think as a curriculum itself included in the university's programs and all, so that we don't have to exert this extra pressure, making people realize why mediation is important at the first place. So yeah, conformity, compliance. We talked about rewards and punishments, which influences behavior, and we know law is always the law is being perceived to be playing that role, that maintain the law and order of the society and all of those things. And then internalization. So leaders can inspire and persuade others to adopt their values and beliefs. This creates more committed and engaged team, but requires strong communication and emotional intelligence also. Right? Next slide, sir. So today we talk about what are types of intelligence: emotional intelligence, then EQ, IQ, and one more Q is there.
Artificial intelligence.
Oh yes, very important, artificial intelligence. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. So we see all these intelligence now because you are not aware of AI and how to use AI in drafting, So then probably you might not be. So I believe we are not relying just blindly on those things, but yes, we need to be aware of all these changes taking place and the types of intelligence which are emerging with the time. So this requires, so Professor work also explores the various techniques and strategies used to persuade others, including framing, priming, and emotional appeals. So he says that expertise, when we use our knowledge and experience to influence the decision making. This is very important. Like we used to do counseling earlier. I don't know today it is happening or not because this generation is very fast. They don't need counseling. They are already knowing what they need to do. But earlier in my times, we used to do counseling that, why this particular stream, why that particular stream. Like in my university, we have 5 streams with law: BA LLB, BSc LLB, BCom LLB, BBA LLB, and BSW LLB. So I need to really, work hard to persuade them, to pursue BSW, Bachelor's of Social Work and Law. And they always have this question that when they will sit for placement, how are they going to explain the companies what is social work and law and how is it even integrated, right? So how do you influence the decision making is something very important which comes as part of leadership and this whole process, and it includes providing sound advice and guidance. They can earn trust and respect, leading others to follow their lead, right? Then persuasion, we already talked, which includes effective communication and strategies to convince others of their ideas. Like, I just said that why are we here? Are we inspired to understand what is this, how is this session going to help us, and all of this. So sometimes framing arguments logically, addressing the concerns and appealing to emotions. Again, as we were talking about that particular example, we see all of these things were entailed in it. And therefore we see a lot of people coming together for one particular cause. And then framing, leaders can shape how situations are perceived, influencing how others interpret information and make choices. My throat, मेरा गला खराब है, उसकी गलती नहीं है. Yeah, so leaders can shape how situations are perceived, influencing how others interpret information. Like I said something, I don't know he understood or not, but I just said it. So this, I think sir understood and he knows what pain I was talking about. So by highlighting certain aspects and downplaying others, they can certainly guide the decision. This is also what we see happening most of the time. Next slide. Okay, so relational influence. We talk about building relationships. Very important that these leaders who we were just mentioning as examples, they've invested in building strong relationships with their team members, which can foster trust and loyalty. And this creates a foundation for effective influence, as people are more likely to follow someone they like and respect. Do you agree with this?
Yes, of course.
Yes. At the first place, I believe. If you don't trust somebody, you don't respect somebody, you cannot follow them.
Exactly.
For no matter whatever be the reason. So with the time, and even if not initially,
with the time, these are the few things which work a lot. So always building a good reputation, good branding, a good relationship is something which plays a very, very crucial role. Then empowerment. So it was not just my thought, I think Mike also. So empowerment, leaders are leaders who empower their team members to take ownership and make decisions can foster a sense of autonomy and engagement. This can lead to increased motivation and buy-in to the leader's vision. So probably all of you, because you are already with Supreme Court of Bangladesh, you don't had that concern. But I know my students who actually have to look into placement and all of those things. They know that they would like to be part of a team wherein they have certain amount of autonomy, wherein their voices are valued. They can participate in the decision making process. Even if not at the first place influence, but their voices would be heard. What they want, why they want, and how the things should be would be taken care of. So we would obviously prefer doing that, or prefer going ahead with that. So this can lead to increased motivation and to buy into the leader's vision. Then emotional intelligence. Leaders who understand and manage their own emotions as well as those of others can create a positive and supportive work environment. This fosters collaboration and makes it easier to influence behavior in a constructive way. So now we know we are in the world wherein, at least we need to believe in this, that instead of competition, cooperation is something which we are moving towards. So that cooperation, that bringing in or synergizing those energy together can help us in a better way. So that's how the leaders create a positive environment and influence the behavior in a constructive way. Then Professor Sunny talks about influence tactics. So he says that effective leaders are skilled communicators who can use persuasion techniques. So I'm saying again and again Professor Sunny because I believe, you would believe and go ahead with these words more instead of if I say that, these are my words. So it's a disclaimer again that, so somebody of that stature who has done extensive studies, and gone in depth of understanding leadership and influence has concluded these few things. So therefore there is some content, some intention and some things to take away from that. So he says that skilled communicators who can use persuasion techniques to win over followers, and it involves crafting compelling arguments. I think all of you are required to very much do that, appealing to the emotions and values and addressing any concerns or objections. Like as a mediator, right? In the very beginning, these are the few things which we need to do. Plus, building trust and rapport with followers is very crucial for successful persuasion. Like we say, if certain times mediation fails, it is because parties didn't had that belief. They might be just going with the intention that because it is mandated, we have to sit for this. But if they are convinced, they are persuaded, if they know how mediation can change the scenario, how can this can result into better outcomes, they would probably feel and know its importance and participate in a serious manner. Then leaders employ various influence tactics to achieve those goals. Some of them include rational persuasion, like presenting logical arguments and evidence to convince others, which we do mostly in the courts. Ingratiation, building rapport and goodwill to gain favor. Appealing to emotions, evoking feelings like fear, excitement, or empathy to motivate action. So I teach access to justice and criminal justice to my students, and because I want to integrate social work values and law, in the initial stage, what I do, Vijay, is, give them certain cheats in which there are certain roles. And I tell them to stand in a row and they don't have to reveal the roles which they are in. So suppose if in the cheat it is written that, I am a tribal girl who is a teenager and who is not having any parents. Or I am a single woman, with graduation or something. And many, many more things like this. And then I ask them as a facilitator the questions that take 3 steps forward if you feel that you had the you have access to justice in in a time wherein you feel that your rights have been violated. Take 2 steps forward if you feel that if you will approach the correctional system or the criminal justice system, it would help you in the position where you are, and things like that. Sometimes there are questions which make them to think and take a step backward, and then they say that because I was in that role, I felt that I didn't had enough money, to go to the court or to fight for my rights. And then at the end, we see that those who were standing in the same line, now there is a lot of difference between them. A lot of difference. But it might appear as a game to them. But ultimately, my role is those who are at the back. I tell them that, doesn't this agitate you? How does it feel to be at the back? How does it feel to be marginalized? Now can you step into the shoes of them and, see for yourself? And then we also equally ask the people who are in the front, how does it feel to be in the power? How does it feel to be somebody who has, all the facilities, money, influence, everything? Right? How do you feel people seeing, those who, because of all these things, are at the back? And then probably it influences them. Probably it clicks them that, how is the situation and how does it affect? So that's what we call evoking feelings like fear, excitement and empathy. Then promise and threat, offering rewards or making threats to influence behavior. This is what is also happening many a times. We see, that we say that this kind of schemes would be there, or this kind of facilities would be provided, and all of those things. And then social pressure, utilizing group norms and expectations to encourage conformity. This is also especially in cultural contexts like ours, we know this is something which influence a lot. No matter how much, somebody wanted to pursue some other thing, but because a lot of pressure from around, which also influenced our parents and everything, has made us to choose a particular path, a particular stream, etc. So understanding the specific tactics used by the leaders can actually help us to analyze their leadership style and their effectiveness, right? So charisma we already talked about. It is also something which is important. Charismatic leaders possess the ability to inspire and motivate others through their vision, passion and communication skills. They often use storytelling, symbolism and emotional appeals to connect with the followers on a deeper level. This inspirational influence can be a powerful tool for driving change and achieving collective goals. Then another area is building trust and reciprocity. We had talked about this. We need to be reliable, trustworthy, transparent, empathetic, creating a sense of mutual obligation, commitment, etc. So these are some of the ways in which we actually develop the foundation for leadership. Yes, sir. Yes, something very important Professor in his work talks about is influence the willing and the unwilling. Right? How many of you were willing to come here today on a holiday? Okay. So we know, right? So this is where the glitch comes, or where the glitch is, that are the people willing to be influenced or they are unwilling? Because we know, and we how do we know that? Because if they are willing, they would be nurturing existing motivation, and if they are unwilling, we would be as a leader addressing the resistance over there. So with willing followers, we use rational appeals like present logical arguments and evidence to convince followers of the benefits of their vision. And emotional resonance also we talked about a lot, inspiring them to embrace the cause. And then social proof, wherein we talk about leveraging the conformity and group pressure to encourage the participation. So the next batch we can probably inspire, saying this, because this batch has benefited so much, and therefore, it would be of help to you as well. But if somebody who is unwilling follower or unwilling, participant, then you need to present your message in a way that aligns with their existing beliefs and values, making it more palatable incremental change. So maybe we can start small, but and take some achievable steps to build trust and momentum before proposing larger transformations and addressing concerns like acknowledging the and addressing their reservations openly and honestly to build trust and overcome resistance. So I think this is probably one of the best way that we can work with the unwilling followers. Yes. Another very important area is ethical considerations. So it's not just about learning the skills of influencing the people or persuading them to, come together. But what are the ethical considerations which involves making ethical decisions? So it's very important to remember that leadership influence should be used ethically and responsibly. I am glad that in the beginning only responsibility word came, and this is with which actually we take a step ahead. And leaders should avoid manipulative tactics, coercion, and exploiting their power for personal gain. Instead, they should focus on influencing others for the greater good, promoting shared values, and empowering their followers to reach to their full potential. Right. So these are there are certain ethical responsibilities which also comes with being a leader. Right. And we know if somebody has become a leader for a while, but they might not be able to continue with that. So there are many aspects or many reasons behind that. So something right from building the trust and rapport with the people, other aspects could even include how ethically they were able to take the momentum ahead. So in summary of this, we can say that we need to connect with the audience feelings and beliefs to foster buy-in and commitment. We need to present data and arguments to convince the intellect and build trust. This is also very important. I think in law, research-based evidences or facts and figures is something which we always value. So even here, in the leadership, if you actually present the data and arguments to convince the intellect and build trust, like yesterday only I was talking with Vijay sir about the access to justice report. So there is a global access to justice report also, and then country-wise also. So I was just mentioning that the data shows that majority of the times people are not ready to acknowledge that the problem they are facing is a legal problem. First place, right? Second barrier to access to justice is even if they acknowledge or recognize that this is a legal problem, they don't want to go with finding a solution to it in a legal way, right? They don't want to go to the court, or they don't want to go, So lawyers and doctors, I always say that we should stay away from. But fortunately, I am now associated with the same group only, and I mean it. Okay, so we say that, we know that presenting the data. So if I say that you want to work with community mediation, because at the first place people don't realize that the issue they are facing, it's not just a personal in-house matter, but it can be an issue of domestic violence or something, and many more examples to that. So at the first place, we need to acknowledge that something is there in the society which is not making us to even acknowledge that this is a legal problem and that could be solved legally, or it has a legal solution. Then social proof and conformity. Leverage peer pressure and social validation to encourage desired behavior. This is, we know, at least as a child, we know we are very good at using this, saying that because the other person is doing that, we need to do that. Because that gives conformity. It, raises the belief, the bar, that something when previously has happened in a positive manner, it can work. Like in context of legal aid. If the data show that legal aid has helped people, the countries who have invested more in the legal aid aspects, those states have achieved, better results in terms of access to justice. Storytelling and narrative, our friend has already highlighted that, and so it can always be used to, create such engaging stories to, persuade your audience and illustrate your message. Reciprocity and exchange, offer benefits and rewards in exchange for desired actions. So how do you think you can apply these strategies in your leadership roles? We want you to be inspired at least a bit so that you can initially only 3-4 hands were raised when I asked how many of us want to be leaders. So at least we expect, I don't know what are your expectations from these sessions, but our expectations is that at least you get a bit of inspired. You know? So if you agree, even to a little extent, if I am successful in persuading you, not influencing, how do you think you can apply these strategies in your leadership roles? What would be the best you think? Because it depends from person to person also, nature to nature also. How do we want to take things ahead? What do you think would help you? Sir, how much time I have now? How much time do I have now? Huh?
10 minutes more.
10 minutes. Yes. Your looks are telling me you just have 10 minutes. Please go ahead with the slides. Okay, so next slide, please. So then we talk about spheres of influence where leaders can exert influence. Yes, sir. So here we talk about personal, official, social, organizational, and situational spheres. When we talk about personal sphere, we talk about leveraging on the personal aspects like your personality, your aura. Sometimes we say that some people have a very good aura. You feel like, they might help us, or they might be somebody who would be easily able to influence others and things like that. Their expertise, their relationship to influence close circles, etc. Then official spheres, which is derived from obviously the positional power or designation or authority, which comes when you are a part of a formal structure. Social, your network and relationships with your community and organization, again very important. Like we know in context of paralegal volunteers, we always prefer somebody who are particularly from that community itself, right? Because we know that they are more connected with them. So it would be helping us positively. Organizational, formal channels and structures within your institution. So it is also very important to understand all those setups. So if we bring the social and organizational together, we talk about building networks, fostering collaboration, and shaping the group dynamics. So again, group dynamics, which includes a lot of power structures and many other things which comes into the picture, which influences our decisions or others' decisions, they can be taken care of. Then if we are aware of situational sphere, we could be adapting influence strategies to the specific context and challenges. As I said, that not in every context, same things would be replicated, right? Because we know certain states are doing very good in certain aspects. Like, in India only, we say Maharashtra has been doing very good in terms of providing free legal aid and achieving better results. But there are certain other states which, even though so much of investment is being done, I should not take the name of the states now. So, but they are not still able to, commit par with the state of Maharashtra. So something like that. So situational also, specific context and challenges. So what we need to do as a leader, or to grow ourselves as a leader, is to identify our strongest sphere of influence and how can we maximize that impact. Like many a times now we hear that if your network is good, I don't know how many of you have experienced that good network helps.
Yeah, good network helps.
Not experience, seen it.
Seen it, okay. Okay. So which influence you to believe that network
Network
helps?
helps. Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, all right. So if that is that is an ability with only few people are skilled at, or it naturally comes to them. So if you know that sphere of yours, which you can utilize in a better manner, probably that can help us to go ahead. Yes. Then if we talk about influence for change, so I wanted to know what changes do you want to see in the world, and how can influence be harnessed to achieve them? Yes, sir. Next. So the transformative potential of influence, specifically influencing the positive change, if we talk about, so we see examples of leaders utilizing influence specifically in context of social justice, environmental protection, and other impactful causes. What is the name of that girl? Greta. Greta, right? Now we are witnessing a lot of climate change. It's no more something which is in theory. So
It's not in theory.
not in
but-
theory anymore, right? And it's very unfortunate as well and surprising that in the month of December we are not actually witnessing the kind of winter we used to. So it's a total drastic and sudden change, which we were, forecasting about, but we have not thought that it would become a reality in such a sooner, future. So that way we know that even in terms of environmental protection or climate change, people like Greta, they have created a momentum, mobilized so many people coming together for the same cause and other impactful causes. So because, why they have been successful? Because they've been able to challenge the existing norms, sparking the critical thinking and encouraging the new perspectives. Like as I said, even though we might have been fortunate to not experience those complexities of life, but if you are put in that situation, and if I raise a question that how does it feel to be at the back, how does it feel to not be able to access justice just because of few basic things which you are not able to have, right? So that kind of things can help us to think critically, to question things, and then to find answers to them in a different perspective. Challenging assumptions questions the status quo and offer new perspectives to spark innovation and progress. This is in terms of innovation and everything. It's very important that we challenge the existing assumptions, especially which are not positively contributing to the growth of the society. Mobilizing action, which involves, again, taking concrete steps towards the change by mobilizing people and motivating them to come together. Building consensus and collaboration. As I said, fostering dialogue, collaboration to build shared ownership and commitment to change, and cooperation and joint efforts for greater impact. And then promoting social justice and equity. Here, using influence to advocate for marginalized groups and address inequalities. Right? Yes. Uh, so, structures for influence processes. Within this, we talk about social influence, group influence, communication exchange, again, intellectual influencing, theory of mind, and public speaking. So, these are few of the areas which Professor Sadi has highlighted as part of the structures of influence. When it's about self-influence, your own thoughts, your feelings, your actions, because sometimes consciously or unconsciously we are becoming a part of certain things. So until and unless we become aware of those things, we can never find, as I said, acknowledging a problem as a legal problem in itself. And I could see many of the friends were astonished hearing that. So this is also what happens. Therefore, even in the influence, self-influence is very important. Many times we ourselves don't have that confidence, right? Yes, sir. Next. So some actionable tips, what could be there, specifically in context of strategies for developing leadership skills. As I said, focusing on continuously evolving yourself, taking charge of your own growth and development. But very important part of that is seek feedback and self-reflection. Whenever I give presentation, I expect that people give some feedback. So because I know that what are the areas, like one of our friend very honestly last time told me, "Ma'am, बहुत theory था." So I was like, yes, that's an important feedback, because I thought I might be thinking that I'm bringing in a new perspective, but of course it entailed a certain amount of theory to be talked about. But would there have been another way to put the things so that people might have not felt that they were sitting in a university classroom and listening to some boring theoretical lecture. So seeking feedback and self-reflection is very important. It could be from our own peers, it could be from our mentors, from team members, to identify the areas of improvement. Then build a strong support network, as we were already talking about how networks help. So maybe here leaders should surround themselves with mentors, coaches, colleagues who can provide guidance and support. We should not go with this assumption that because I'm a leader, I don't need any feedback. Right? You are a leader because you had worked on the feedback you had received. Right? So this is always very important. Like when we even work with our own colleagues, probably at the end of that project, when we do a meeting, that what worked well and what not worked well, we actually get to know, what were those things which directed the programs to go in the right direction, or what might have been taken more care of to make it more smooth and go in a smooth manner. Then invest in personal and professional development. So yes, this is what you are doing very well. So keep doing that and keep meeting us again and again. And we hope that it does bring some change. Then there are qualities, we had already talked about. Yes, sir, next slide. And then the future of leadership and influence. So we know it will continue to evolve in response to technological advancements. AI, we had already talked. So even in terms of that, like people have started providing, classes on that, so that in certain contexts wherein coding and all of those things, wherein this is really bringing a large change, how can these technologies be embraced? So obviously, with the changing times, with the kind of dynamic environment we are in, this is going to be ever evolving area. And yeah, other things. And then the role of emotional intelligence, EI, is always very important. I think keeping apart every other AI, PI, and whatever prefixes are there, if we keep EI at the top, I don't know. We cannot say it very. There are other experts who can comment probably better on that. But EI is probably something which always helps us to do the things ethically, go in the right direction,
Build the strong
decide,
relationships.
yes,
Build the
build relationships, and continue with that kind of thing. And therefore, we see the growth and development also happening, creating a positive environment. Yes, sir. Next. And then there are influence and power dynamics in leaderships, which are also to be taken care of, which requires us to actually have an understanding of these dynamics, because we know, that not everybody is thinking in the same direction, and we don't want people to also think in the same direction. But even with those differences, how do we come together? How do we believe that what we are doing is going in the right direction? So understanding those dynamics can help us to work in a far more better aligned or structured way, and help us to inspire or motivate and guide others towards specifically the shared goals if we are focusing on. And it could be derived from various sources like position, expertise, relationships, or personal qualities. So there is this call to action that we need to become a conscious and ethical influencer, both within ourselves and in our interactions with others. Yes. Yeah, so finally, professors' work on leadership is being identified as one of the important contribution in the field of emotional intelligence and empathy, in specifically effective leadership, as these qualities enable leaders to connect with their followers and build trust. I think this word summary and conclusion has some spark, right? Everybody is like, okay, coming to an end. So his research on foot in the door technique demonstrated that people are more likely to agree to a larger request if they have already agreed to a smaller related request beforehand. So a very good strategy he talks about. So taking smaller steps to convince others. Then another research he talks about yes but technique, right? So very subtle way to deal with the things. So not denying them at the forefront, but probably you can say yes, I agree, but kintu parantu all comes into the picture. So which are also the part of the persuasion technique. We know our parents are experts in doing that, right? So he found that this technique, which involved acknowledging an objection before addressing it, can be particularly effective in certain cultural contexts. And then there are heuristics and biases in decision making. So he has conducted extensive research on how people use mental shortcuts and cognitive biases when making decisions. Mental shortcuts is also something which we need to understand here. So his work has shed light on how these biases can be exploited by persuasive communicators to influence behavior. Right now, the kind of things happening around us, we often ask this: how can he even how can he or she even do this? You know, so it's like probably it's about mental shortcuts and personal beliefs which sometimes create a barrier in our larger understanding. So leaders actually use them, and then yes, of course, cultural influence has to be taken care of. I would just like to end with these words of Nancy Wood. She says that hold on to what is good, even if it is a handful of earth. Hold on to what you believe, even it is a tree which stands by itself. Hold on to what you must do, even if it is a long way from here. And hold on, very important, hold on to what is good, so that we can bridge the gap between hope and justice. Yes, with this, I would end. Thank you so much for bearing with me. If there are any questions, I think we have time allocated after at the end of the day, so we can discuss further.
So now,
Thank my now only.
any question?
Okay, are there any questions? I have persuaded enough
Yes.
so that they don't have any question. Thank you, everyone.
Esteemed guests here from 3 different spaces linked to legal fraternity, and the friends here in the audience listening very patiently to the presentations. I don't have any presentations here. As a chair, I'll just share some of my views which came up since morning. For me, I think mediation is fundamental to human existence. And I'm very happy that we're having this training program. And especially today, we're all here to inspire each other. And today's morning session, right from Goswami sir to Apurva, and I am sure when Justice sir will speak, lot of motivation will come. Especially I'm inspired by what's happening this morning. Importance, I think what I gathered was when we talk of, we were talking about leadership. Many qualities are there. Which is the one thing which you all feel which is very important as a leader in the mediation process?
Build trust and rapport building.
Building trust?
And rapport building.
Yes. And that's very important. Building trust and
Rapport building.
rapport building. And what I realized was the among the leaders which we heard, leaders who are navigators and those who are building bridges. These two qualities, I think, as a mediator is very important if you can cultivate those leadership, because mediators are building the bridges. Okay. And that quality, if you can imbibe, if you can take that quality inside you, that really helps in navigating. There are so many issues and challenges that we need to navigate when you talk of mediation. So these two things I think I found it very interesting. And what we understood in this today's talk, if we can internalize, and internalize only takes shape when we reflect upon what we have learned or what we heard and start practicing those values Unless you practice those values, you don't realize how much you imbibe it. So in Hindi we say karke dekho. So whatever you learn today, if you can start practicing those smaller elements. First you reflect upon, you might all have written some notes. Reflect upon it and start experimenting with small things with the community. I'm very happy that some of you are very interested in community mediation, which Goswami sir has been always pursuing, reaching out to the community. There are many people who don't know what to do. There are issues with them. They don't know how to mediate, how to resolve their own issues, whom to approach. So I think this is a very important step, and I'm very happy that in the morning session we are taking back some important elements. And I'm sure as we proceed towards the day and tomorrow, a lot of things to come. Thank you.
Honorable Chair of this training session, Mr. Bijay Bharatia, Peace Activist, BEAMS International Coordinator. Honorable Special Guest, Mr. Hari Shankar Neraula, Senior Advocate, President, Nepal Supreme Court Bar Association. Mr. Muhammad Mamtajuddin Fakir, Senior Advocate, President, Bangladesh Supreme Court Bar Association. Mr. S.N. Goswami, Senior Advocate of Bangladesh Supreme Court and Chairman of BEAMS. Dr. Apurva Patel, Associate Professor of Gujarat National Law University. Distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. I consider it a great honor and privilege for me to address before you as a chief guest of the training session, Inspiration Speeches on Mediation, organized by BEAMS. I'm deeply grateful for inviting me to this session and for giving me the opportunity to share my experiences with you. Dear participants, I know that you have already completed your 40 hours accredited mediators training course organized by BEAMS, and now we are going to have 2-day-long training program starting from today. Today, I'll give you an overall idea of mediation, including today's subject, inspirational mediation, to have a total idea about mediation. Otherwise, you don't have the concept how to inspire the people on mediation. You know that in modern world, the alternative dispute resolution has become very popular day by day for settlement of disputes. It includes mediation, arbitration, negotiation, and conciliation. Mediation is not something new in this subcontinent. Like India, Bangladesh had utilized the system called Panchayat system. This type of traditional mediation continues to be utilized even today in villages, which is called Shalish. Also in pre-British India, impartial and respected businessmen called Mahajans used to resolve disputes using an informal procedure, which both combine mediation and arbitration. So, in very simple terms, what we understand by mediation, there is a process where a neutral and independent third person, a mediator, helps the parties in a dispute to reach their own solution. So you are the mediator, you have to be neutral, you have to persuade the people to go for mediation, considering the present context of the judiciary. So we can consider the mediator as a shuttle diplomat between the parties and exchanges offers and counter offers between them. The parties usually agree who will be the mediator for their dispute, except in court annex mediation. The beauty of mediation is that in mediation, each party has the opportunity to voice their own point of view. The mediator helps the parties to focus on real issues of the dispute and explore options to resolve this. They do not take sides. So you have to remember this, that when you are a mediator, you have to act neutrally. The parties have ultimate control over the outcome of mediation. Parties and not the mediator are the focal point of the mediation process. process. If the parties resolve their dispute at the mediation, they make a written agreement and have orders made by the court to finalize the case. Those orders have same standing as orders made by a judge and can be enforced if necessary. So in contrast to court proceedings, which are open to the public, the mediation process is private and confidential. Anything said or produced as evidence as a mediation session cannot be used in later hearing except in exceptional circumstances. So it is the duty of all the parties to mediation to participate in good faith. So you are the mediator, you are the leader. We have heard from Dr. Apurva Patel, the leadership quality. So as a mediator, you have to have the quality of a leadership and go through the Professor Sani's all the lectures, all the materials, then you can gather the how to be a good mediator. So for a mediator, there is no strict requirement. Usually mediator comes from various professional backgrounds and have undergone training in mediation skills and techniques. Mediator must possess certain qualities such as highest standard of honesty and integrity in conduct and behavior, maintain neutrality, objectivity, and not judgmental. He must have patience, persistence, and perseverance, good communication skills, open-mindedness, and flexible in nature. Mediator, in fact, is a guide who helps the parties to find out their own solution to the dispute, and he works as a peacemaker. So as a mediator, you work as a peacemaker. So you have to remember that. The leader, what is the work of a leader? He try to bring peace among the people. So as a mediator, you're a leader, you have to have the leadership quality, and you have to understand what is the work of a mediator. You know that there are two types of mediation, that court annex mediation, you have heard it in your session in 40 hours training session, and private mediation, I'm not going to go through it again. And you know the process of mediation, you have to know the process. For a successful mediation, if you follow the process, the 6 functional stages, the international standard, there are 6 functional stages of mediation. If you follow that, then your mediation will be successful. I hope that. Now, law is not the only key to ensure justice. Where law failed to ensure justice, then equity came to fill the gap. Mediation is an alternative dispute resolution, is an equitable process which ensures easy access to justice. So you understand that mediation is a process, equitable process. So to inspire the people, you have to have something in your mind that when you go for as a mediator, you have to tell the parties the advantages, the characteristics of mediation. So you have to ensure that when you start a mediation, you try to convince them the advantages of mediation, that in mediation, parties have control over the mediation process in terms of scope and outcome, the right to decide whether to settle or not, and the terms of settlement. Mediation is participative. Parties get an opportunity to present their case in their own words and directly participate in the negotiation. The process is voluntary, and any party can opt out of it at any stage if he feels that it is not helping him. The self-determining nature of mediation ensures compliance with the settlement reached. The procedure is speedy, efficient, cheaper. It is simple, flexible, and time-bound. The process is conducted in an informal, cordial, and conducive environment. It is a fair process and preserves peaceful relationship between the parties. The mediator is impartial, neutral, and independent. The process is confidential, so you have to tell the parties that you have to inspire them that it's confidential, so it will not harm your legal process when the matter is in court, which is a big advantage for both the parties. The main focus is mediation is on resolving the dispute in a mutually beneficial settlement. It allows creativity and promotes finality. The disputes are put to rest fully and finally, as there is no scope for any appeal or revision. And further litigation, as per section 89A of the Code of Civil Procedure. You have to go through this section. You'll understand that there's a provision that once you have settled an issue through mediation, there's no appeal or revision lies. That's the way you have to inspire the parties, that if you settle a dispute through mediation, then it is final. So you don't have to go for a prolonged litigation. Refund of court fees is permitted as per the rules in the case of settlement in court-referred mediation. Further, it is without prejudice. That is, what is said by you or by the party will not use against you as evidence if your case proceeds to trial. Finally, it helps to reduce pressure on judiciary. It is like win-win situation for both the parties, which creates peace among the parties and a way forward for development. Any settlement reached in a case that is referred for mediation during the course of litigation is required to be reduced in writing, signed by the concerned parties, and filed in court for passing of an appropriate order. In the event of failure to settle the dispute, the report of the mediator does not mention the reason for the failure. The report only say, not settle. Mediator cannot be called upon to testify any proceeding or to disclose to the court as to what transpired during the mediation. So when you're dealing mediation, you have to tell the parties all these benefits, the characteristics of mediation. That will inspire the people. That will inspire that this is the benefit of mediation. So we prefer mediation. We try to solve the problem through mediation. You're practicing in Bangladesh, so you need to know some sort of which legislations have alternative dispute resolution. I'll just tell the name of the legislation so that you have an idea over it. The Contract Act 1872, Section 28 of the Code of Civil Procedure 1908, Muslim Family Laws Ordinance 1961, the Family Courts Ordinance 1985, Arbitration Act 2001, Authorin Adalat Ain 2003, the Income Tax Ordinance 1984, the Value Added Tax Act 1991, Customs Act 1969, the Conciliation of Disputes Board Act 2004, the Village Courts Act 2006, Labor Act 2006, EPZ Trade Union and Industrial Relation Act 2004, Real Estate Development and Management Act 2010. So more or less all these legislations, they have a provision for alternative dispute resolution. In other words, mediation or arbitration. So you see there's a lot of sections you can deal with for mediation arbitration. So as a lawyer, you have to remember this and try to persuade your client that if you go for mediation, there's a provision mediation, and it will help you for the prolonged litigation. As you know, the arbitration at the present moment, it takes 7 to 10 years. I have my own experience. When I was a practicing lawyer, some arbitrations, it took me about 7 to 10 years to finish. So that's why I always suggest that mediation would be the best possible option to resolve the problem, especially in our country. So you have to go through the section 89A to 89E of the Code of Civil Procedure. I hope that all of you will go through it properly. Then you will have an overall idea about mediation. This amended section actually introduced in 2003 about the court and its mediation arbitration as integral part of the civil proceedings in Bangladesh. And it was at that time it was discretionary power of the court. Later on, the amendment in 2006 introduced the provision of mediation in the appellate stage. And in 2012, it was made mandatory in civil proceedings. and it was again amended in 2017 that made provision to revert the dispute or disputes to the concerned legal aid officer. So you see that there's a provision of mandatory provision, but we don't actually follow this. We see when Mr. Nirawola mentioned that the lawyer did not cooperate in all the mediation process. That is true, actually. I'm actually grateful to him. He admits that. So this is one of the problems, that the lawyers, they don't want to cooperate. That they think that they lose money if they conclude the case so early. So another thing you have to inspire them, that in Bangladesh there is a provision, specific provision, that mediation, the time frame they have mentioned in mediation is 60 days from the date on which the court is informed or mediator is appointed by the court, as the case may be within which the mediation process must be concluded. The court may, however, in its own motion or upon a joint request preferred by the parties, extend the time period for another 30 days. So in total, 90 days plus 7 days time for passing necessary order according to Order 23, Rule 3 of the Code of Civil Procedure. The parties will always have the option to get back to the stage of formal judicial process from which the dispute has been sent for mediation. Once an agreement is reached and executed by the parties, the same is considered to be final, and no party will be permitted to reopen the same either by way of fresh suit or by way of appeal or revision. So this is the way you can convince them, inspire the parties that this is the provision in law. So if you try for mediation, once, if you at least you go for mediation once, then you have the option to go back to the trial procedure again. So why don't try for a mediation? So even you have a mediation in criminal litigation, one section in section 345 of the criminal procedure, 1898, enacts provision for compromise in the compoundable offenses. So you have to remember this as well. In this connection, I would like to refer Justice Badrul Haidar Chaudhry, whose decision was reported in 36 DLR Appellate Division, page 240, where he said that they encourage settlement of dispute either by panchayat or by arbitration or by way of compromise. And if it is a criminal offense, the offense can be compounded within the limit of section 345 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. So you see that there's in criminal procedure there is a scope for mediation as well, for compromise. And Justice Iman Ali also, in a judgment in 29 BLT Appellate Division, page 29, he also preferred for compounded offenses to be compromised through mediation. So to inspire the parties, so you have to tell them the mediation cases have a significant advantage over traditional lawsuits. That is, it is quicker, less expensive, less formal, confidential, preserve relationships, greater flexibility and control, better results, and greater compliance. Attending mediation can give the parties valuable insight into the opposing party's position and help to narrow the issues that need to be addressed at trial. So this is the thing you have to tell the parties, inspire the parties. Peace and development are interrelated. Development may come in different forms: politically, socially, culturally, educationally, economically, etc. Increased commercial activities also bring about economic development. Various forms of development need a peaceful environment to sustain them. Therefore, to resolve the disputes must be applied swiftly in order to restore peace and development. Methods of dispute resolution like mediation becomes imperative, inevitable. Mediation is becoming a more peaceful and internationally accepted solution in order to end international conflict. International mediation in violent national conflict has long been undertaken by the United Nations, the African Union, other multilateral organizations. In Africa alone, over the past 3 decades, mediators have labored to end deadly conflict in Angola, Burundi, the Comoros, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ivory Coast, Kenya, Liberia, Madagascar, Rwanda, Somalia, Sudan, Uganda, Zimbabwe. So you can see that mediation has vital role to resolve deadly national conflict between the countries. So the President of Supreme Court Bar Association Bangladesh mentioned the Palestine problem. So you see that this can be solved through mediation. I think we have to urge the United Nations and other countries to solve this through mediation, and mediation would be the best possible option. So as a mediator, you have to know some other techniques as well. That mediation can be done through online mediation. That way you can inspire as well, that you don't have to come to a place when online mediation is going on. You can go for online mediation. In Western countries, this is increasingly using different forms of technology and online dispute resolution platform for mediation, which allow the parties to negotiate remotely, maintaining social distancing by virtually using smartphone, tablet, computer, or other similar technology, practically from any location. So this is the benefit of mediation, that online mediation, you can tell the parties to inspire them. Now, delay in disposal of cases become common culture in our court system. It is also to be kept in mind that mediation is not going to solve all the problems of formal adjudication system as a panacea, but it is true that if properly utilized to its proper sense and spirit, it can significantly help reduce the backlog of cases in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a party to New York Convention, and based on that, our Arbitration Act 2001 was established on the ancestral model law. Now, for practical reasons, arbitration is not working properly in Bangladesh. As I told you that it takes around 7 to 10 years to come to a conclusion, most of the arbitration cases, and there's a provision for appeal. You can go to the up to the appellate division. You could go for any arbitration decision. Rather, in mediation, if you solve a problem, this is final. No appeal or revision lies. So this is the way you can convince the parties that mediation is like win-win situation, less formal, less expensive, and time-bound by law. And I believe that mediation would be the best possible option to overcome the backlog of cases in context of Bangladesh. Our economy is developing very rapidly. Many foreign companies are now investing in Bangladesh. So effective steps towards alternative dispute resolution is needed to make Bangladesh an investment-oriented country. I believe that the Bangladesh government will continue to strongly support the use of mediation and arbitration and encourage efforts to develop the field of mediation through research, studies, and training, and will help to create a better business-friendly environment by establishing an international mediation academy in Bangladesh. Also, I think it is the high time for Bangladesh to be a signatory of Singapore Convention. The United Nations General Assembly adopted this convention on 20th December 2018. It is known as the Singapore Convention on Mediation and also the first UN treaty to be named after Singapore. Singapore Convention will provide a more effective way of enforcing mediated settlement of corporate disputes involving businesses in Bangladesh and other signatory countries. The Singapore Convention ultimately aims to facilitate international trade by rendering mediation an efficient and entrusted method for solving cross-border disputes alongside with arbitration and litigation. So as a mediator, you have to know all these things, that Singapore Convention, other things. You are an accredited mediator. So when you represent your country in cross-border dispute, you have to know this. That's why I mentioned this in inspirational speech. The world continues to be a global village. It is already observed. Investment and trading activities can only be beneficial under a judicial environment like mediation that ensures speedy and efficient disposal of disputes that may arise in the course of doing business. The court dockets are overloaded and new cases are being filed every day in our country. It is becoming humanly impossible to decide all these cases by the regular courts in a speedy and cost-effective manner. It has therefore become imperative to use mediation mechanism to resolve disputes so that one can enjoy the peace and development he or she desires. Mediation is currently seeing a success rate of average 80% throughout the Western world. Regarding ADR, our former late lamented Honorable Chief Justice of Bangladesh, Honorable Justice Mustafa Kamal said, ADR is a non-formal settlement of legal and judicial disputes as a means of disposing of cases quickly and inexpensively. It is not a panacea for all evils, but an alternative route to a speedier and less expensive mode of settlement of disputes. It is voluntary and cooperative way out of impasses. I'd also like to quote Robert Bush, written his book, Mediation is less traumatic, more human, and far more capable of healing and reconciliation than adjudication. Also, recently in the India-Singapore Mediation Summit, Honorable Chief Justice of Singapore, Mr. Justice Sundaras Menon, Supreme Court of Singapore, said that mediation is the way forward. That is, it ensures peace and development. We know that judiciary of Bangladesh is overburdened with nearly 4 million cases, and number is mounting day by day with the institution of fresh cases. Due to a number of factors, including inadequate number of judges in terms of pending cases, procedural formality and complexity, poor logistic support, and corruption are the main reasons our backlog of cases in our country. In this backdrop, we can easily understand the importance of promoting mediation in our judiciary to reduce the backlog of cases. Actually, time has come to think to provide a forum for the poor and needy people who approach the court of law to redress their grievance speedily. As we all know, the delay in disposal of cases in our courts, for whatever reason it may be, has really defeated the purpose for which the people approach the courts to their redressal. Justice delayed is justice denied, and at the same time, justice hurried will make the justice buried. So we will have to find out via media between these two to render social justice to the poor, the needy who wants to seek their grievance redressed through court of law. And mediation, I think, is the best possible way to do that. People in our country are simply fed up with the long delay in deciding cases. Not only are the litigants facing great hardship due to the massive arrears, but even the lawyers and judges. The lawyers, because there is pressure of the clients on them, whose cases are not being taken up for hearing, and judges because of the huge daily cause list, which are humanly impossible to clear. While most of the judges are working hard to reduce the backlog, yet because the heavy filing and huge pendency, it is not humanly possible for the judiciary to carry this massive load of cases alone. After all, the judges has to read the papers, hear the counsel deliberate over the matter, and only then can he deliver a high quality judgment. All this takes time. Hence, alternative dispute resolution mechanism have urgently to be evolved. The best method, in my opinion, is mediation. In order to encourage mediation, a committed role is required to be played both by the bench and the bar in order to create awareness and faith in the mediation system. Of all the factors that lawyers as well as the clients need to take notice of while in their role as mediators. Preparation and patience are the most fundamental. Clients too need to have a different mindset while participating in mediation. Mentally, they should also be prepared to often encounter proposals that are wholly unacceptable to them without exasperation. Since such proposals and counter proposals are common in the parties, search for a compromise acceptable to both. Mediator must be in a position to be able to evaluate the case in an intelligent manner by assessing the parties' desire to settle, the desire to reduce cost and time also play their part in this evaluative process. My joy was boundless. I had learned the true practice of law. I had learned to find out the better side of human nature and to enter men's hearts. I realized the true function of a lawyer was to unite parties riven as under. The lesson was so indelibly burnt into me that a large part of my time during the 20 years of my practice as a lawyer was occupied in bringing about private compromises of hundreds of cases. I lost nothing thereby, not even money, certainly not my soul. So you can understand from this quote that how he has dealt his legal profession as well. In 20 years, is always trying to compromise. And you heard from Mr. Momtajuddin Fakir that I'm really grateful to him that he recognized legal profession as the best profession among other professions. So it should be inspired for all of us that you are a profession, in a legal profession. You have to carry on it in a good manner, in a better way, as a mediator as well. Now, it is natural that everything has good and bad side. In mediation, some difficulties that there's no guarantees about the success of mediation. If the other side is adamant that they are right, refuses to listen to what you have to say or won't agree to mutually beneficial terms, the case could end up going to court anyway. Sometimes you might go for public as because mediation is confidential. So, but in some cases, this might not work in your favor. If you have been accused of something publicly, then you may want the public vindication that comes with a court case. Now, from my point of view, the reasons for declining mediation in Bangladesh are non-cooperation of the lawyers, which Mr. Nirawala, President of Bar, Supreme Court Bar Nepal, has rightly identified, ignorance and absence of trained mediators, lack of mediation centers, change of mentality, and no specific law for mediation like Arbitration Act 2001 in Bangladesh. It is in fact that in our country, the lawyers do not want to cooperate with the court. It is true for losing their income. My view is that a standard amount of fees for the lawyers may be set consensually for mediation for a better result. Public awareness needs to be created for promoting mediation. To that effect, special programs on mass media like radio, TV channels, newspapers may be featured. Social media like Facebook may also be of tremendous help. Additionally, legal aid office in the district court can also work as a cell in informing people about the benefits of mediation. This is the way you can inspire the people for mediation. As an accredited mediator, it's a responsibility to inspire the people that they go for mediation. And as a lawyer, you have a responsibility as well. The judiciary is overburdened now. So you have to think about it. All of us have to think about it. Further, we need to build mediation center in every district. Recently, Supreme Court Mediation Center has been established, and where you have get your training as an accredited mediator. Educate training for mediators and arbitrators should be arranged from time to time. More steps should be taken to train the lawyers, then they will be encouraged to be a professional mediator in addition to their legal practice. BIMs are playing a great vital role in this regard. I'm grateful to BIMS for all this initiative. Now, father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who wanted a change in the traditional judicial system of Bangladesh by introducing alternative dispute resolution and therefore promote ADR successfully. So we can show respect to him only by fulfilling his dream. Dear participant, my advice to you is that as an accredited mediator, you have to act fairly, impartially, independently, and maintain confidentiality. Further, you have to honor party autonomy, avoid conflict of interest, act in accordance with the agreed principles and rules by applying judicial mind, in particular maintaining utmost integrity and sincerity, and should have the intention to do justice. We are aware of the course of William Gladstone, that justice delayed is justice denied, and also Martin Luther King Jr. said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Every citizen is entitled to have access to justice. Delayed justice even sometimes fails to give proper remedies to a winning party. We all have to keep in mind all this course for a judicial system and do our job properly to open the door of justice and ensure it for all. Now I'll quote Mr. D.Y. Chandrachud, the Honorable Chief Justice of India, some time back gave this slogan that let us mediate, not litigate. He said about mediation that mediation is ventilation of human feelings. Mediation is democracy in action, where people do justice among themselves. Mediators are healers and peacemakers. Mediation provides balance to human owns. So my view is that mediation is a tested mechanism and its role is building up an efficient dispute resolution system is undisputed. Thus, mediation should be part and parcel of our judiciary, and considering the huge backlog of cases, we should encourage litigant people to go for mediation, not for litigation. Litigation should be the last resort. And also, I remember the suggestion Dr. Purva Patel has referred that if we can include mediation subject in our LLB curriculum, that will be helpful. If you understand mediation from the beginning, if your law problem, in your academic session, then it will be helpful. When you're a lawyer, then you'll inspire to go for mediation, and you will inspire the people for mediation. It has been rightly said by Albert Einstein, in the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. Also, former President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, said during a speech at American University in 1963, calling for peaceful relations with the former Soviet Union, that let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. So, as a mediator, accredited mediator, your motto must be never give up. This is the way you have to be inspired. Now, before I wrap up, considering the advantage of mediation in the legal field, it has been rightly pointed out by Joseph Greenbaum, an ounce of mediation is worth a pound of arbitration, a ton of litigation. Also, in the famous words of US President Abraham Lincoln, emphasizing the profound significance of mediation that discourage litigation, persuade your neighbors to compromise whenever you can, point out them the nominal winner is often a real loser in fees, expenses, and waste of time. In fact, mediation allows you to design your own solution. With these remarks, I conclude my speech and express my sincere thanks to the guests from overseas for their valuable speeches, and a heartfelt gratitude to the organizers of BIMS for arranging this training session, in particular Mr. S.N. Goswami, Chairman of BIMS, who is the torchbearer of mediation, trying his level best to promote mediation in Bangladesh. Also, his law journal, Bangladesh Law Times, has been published since 1993 and is also publishing different articles on mediation, doing a great job in this respect to promote mediation. I hope all of you are enjoying the training program, and under the supervision of Dr. Apurva Patel, you'll enjoy the training two-day long training session. And once again, thank you for listening to me with great patience. Best wishes and advance Happy New Year to all of you. That's all for today. Thank you.